Cab driver Steve Stover is suing 24-year-old waitress Angela Morton and her friend, 23-year-old sales agent Jessica Shibley, for false prosecution. They claim Steve was arrested because he fractured Jessica's cheekbone when he hit her with a credit card machine.
Order. All rise. Yeah, this is case number 89 on the calendar in the matter of Stover versus Morton Shibley. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Ladies, have seats, please.
You're Mr. Stover.
Yes, ma'am.
Who's April?
My cousin right there.
Could you step up, April, because you're very much involved with this sad tale that I really tried very hard to organize with limited success. But from what I gather, you and your cousin were out for an evening.
Me, my cousin, and my friend Tammy there.
And you were at some sort of a club?
Yes, ma'am.
And these two ladies were also trying to get into the club?
Yes, ma'am.
And according to you, something happened between April and these two young ladies. They thought she said something untoward to them, or that she smiled and said they couldn't get in and we did. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
So after the club was over, you went back to April's house?
Yes.
And when you got to April's house, you found these two ladies there, waiting for her.
Yes, ma'am. I got there first, and they were setting up the street waiting.
Did you have a conversation with them?
When I pulled in the driveway, they pulled down, and yes, I had a conversation with them.
What did you say to them, and what did they say to you?
It was just a casual conversation. They asked me where April was and when she'd be home, and told them that she was on her way. She'd went to go get pizza.
And after April came home, that's when all this fracas started. And your lawsuit, Mr. Stover, says that one of these two young ladies, that's Angela. Which one is Angela?
I am.
That Angela broke the window on your car with her shoe.
Yes.
She acknowledges that she did that. She says she was defending herself, she was aiming for you, and you ducked. That's your defense.
Well, yes.
That's what I read here. You also claim that Jessica, that's you,
Yes, ma'am.
had you arrested for assault, as a result of which you had lost earnings, you drive a cab, couldn't drive for 4 months.
Yes, ma'am. It was malicious wounding, which was a felony. You know.
And those charges were ultimately dismissed.
The first charges were, then they appealed it to a higher charge, aggravated malicious wounding, which it was a worse 20 years to life.
And was that also dismissed?
Yes, ma'am.
After a trial?
Yes, ma'am.
So there was a full trial?
There was a full trial.
Where you testified and she testified?
Yes.
So you are suing Jessica for having you falsely arrested and loss of income. She is counterclaiming because she says that you assaulted her with some sort of a machine that takes credit cards, imprints.
Yes, ma'am. I have that with me.
You acknowledge that you did, in fact, hit her with that.
Yes, ma'am. It's self-defense.
Okay, so that's what the case is about. So let's get back to the girls are there waiting for April. April has her pizza and comes back to the house. Okay? What is the very next thing that happened? You want to tell me, April?
Jessica called me over to her car. So I walked over to her car. And
You had known her from before that evening.
Yeah. As far as I knew, we were friends. We had talked every time we'd seen each other out. We had talked to each other.
Okay. So she called you over to her car.
Yes. I walked over to her car, asked her what was going on. As soon as I did that, she reached out, grabbed me by the back of my hair, twisted me, and had me upside down in her car. The top of my head was in her lap.
Okay. Then what happened?
I asked her what was going on. She said I was talking or dancing with her boyfriend, which was not true. We were there maybe 10 minutes at that club.
She still got you in the car?
She has me in this underneath with my head.
So you're talking?
Yeah, I was trying to talk nice and calm to her, and I thought we were friends at that time,
Okay, well, clearly at that time she didn't want to be your friend.
Evidently not.
So what happened?
I just kept asking her why she was doing it, and I yelled for Steve. I was like, Steve, come over here and tell her what we did. So Steve eventually comes over.
And what happened, Steve, when you walked over?
Well, when she first hollered for me, I didn't know what was going on. I didn't realize the seriousness of it. And then I eventually went over there and seen what was going on. And we both were trying to reason with Jessica. We told her whatever we did, if we laughed at you, we were sorry. And that's when Angie got out of the other side.
Who was driving?
Angie.
Go ahead.
And she got out, and when she come out, she had a lock blade knife, and she brandished it to Brad and myself. And it pretty much scared us right bad. Then she got back in the driver's side, and as far as I could see, she folded the knife up and put it in the middle console. So that's when I was worried for her, because the way her head was in the car, you know, I was...
Her head was still in the car?
Yes, her head was still in... I was thinking the worst, you know, she could have got cut or anything. So I did what I had to do. I beat down on Jessica's arms and got April's hair loose. And she fell back onto the ground. Then they got mad because I'd got her loose. They chased me to my truck. Jessica was first chasing me, and I was running to my truck trying to get to the phone so I could call the police. And I didn't know who had the knife at the time. So I used to work for a frozen food company selling frozen food, so I had a credit card machine. And I grabbed the first thing I could out of my truck, and I've got the credit card machine here if you'd like to see it.
I would.
Okay. This is the credit.
Gotcha.
That's the credit card machine. I grabbed it out of the truck. I swung it around just wildly, not knowing, just trying to protect myself because I thought she had the knife with her. I didn't know who had the knife. That's when she got flattened on the ground, and then
Who got flattened?
Jessica knocked her down.
Jessica got flattened.
I got into the truck. Angie was still on her way to the truck. I locked the door. I was on the phone with the state police, and that's when she took this shoe and smashed the side window out of my truck. It shattered it. And it's like they ran off. They said they were going to get reinforcements. I was on the phone with the state police. They were connecting me with the Roanoke City police.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
I got hit as soon as I stepped in the grass.
Why did you step in the grass for? Why didn't you stay in the car?
I got out to check on her. That my fault.
Caused your broken face. That sometimes happens to bullies. Bullies sometimes get the short end of the stick.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Steve Stover says he was acting in self-defense when he hit Jessica Shibley in the face with a credit card machine. He claims that Jessica had him falsely prosecuted. Jessica is countersuing for her injuries.
Now, as a result of this, Jessica, you suffered some very serious injury.
Yes, ma'am.
And when you suffered this serious injury, you were right near his truck.
Actually, I just stepped out of the car.
You were right near his truck.
Well, about a car length away, yes, ma'am.
Well, let's go back a little bit. What were you two ladies doing going to her house?
We did go to her house.
For what?
To question her about what had happened at the bar. We were not even in the bar.
What do you mean question her?
Well,
what does that mean, question her?
They had made some comments that upset me, so I went to ask
What kind
them
of
about
comments?
it. Something about us not being able to get in. They thought that was really funny.
So they laughed at you
Yes, ma'am.
that you couldn't get into the club and they did.
Yes, ma'am.
That's what you went to question them about.
Yes, ma'am.
Where had you been before that evening?
We had just been out and about.
What do you mean out and about? What does that mean out and
We had
about?
been downtown. In
Downtown
our
where?
local places where we live, downtown Roanoke. Some different nightclubs and things down there.
All right, so you'd been to some clubs that evening.
Yes, ma'am.
How many clubs had you been to that evening?
We just rode, we didn't even go in one downtown. We had stopped at a little place on Winton Road before we proceeded to go to the one they were at.
Okay. So then you go to April's house to discuss with her,
Yes, ma'am.
her laughing at you.
Yes, ma'am.
And who grabbed her in a headlock?
She wasn't in a headlock.
Who grabbed her in a headlock
I
and grabbed her
by
hair?
the back of the hair after she stuck her head in the car.
She stuck her head in the car
Yes,
to talk to you.
When she come to the car, she stuck her head in the car.
And what did she say?
She basically asked me what I wanted, and that's when I
Okay,
did grab
so
her
she-
by the back of the head.
You grabbed her by the back of the hair. If you're sitting in the car and grabbed her by the back of the hair, then her head's in the car.
Yes, ma'am.
You have no right to do that.
You're right.
That started all the trouble.
Yeah.
Ended up you got your face bashed in.
Yes, ma'am.
That's too bad.
Yeah.
You think you deserve to get paid for that?
I don't deserve to have to pay him.
Why not?
I never laid a hand on him.
You started it. Julie, you started it. You want to show me the picture so that I can see just how dumb you are? That's pretty dumb. You had your cheekbone fractured?
Broken.
Broken.
My eyesight.
Fractured means broken.
Oh, yeah.
Broken. Huh. You had surgery?
Yes, ma'am.
That's pretty bad. What kind of knife was there?
There was no.
Don't tell me there was no knife. I don't want to hear there was no knife. Do you understand? I don't want to hear there was no knife. Now, it could have been a little knife. It could have been one of those little red knives. What do they call those? Swiss Army knives. You know.
I never held a knife. I never seen a knife.
Yeah.
And that is after my surgery. The police would not release the other pictures before the thing.
Oh, I'm sure they were terrible.
Yes.
Who do you have to blame for that?
Steve?
No! You. He was protecting his cousin.
No, his cousin was in the house when I had gotten hit. Angela was out of
Just
the
a
car.
minute. If her cousin was in the house,
After
and you
this
had come
happened-
to speak, listen to me. If she had run into the house because her head got loose, right? And you had finished your conversation with her,
Yes, ma'am.
what were you doing out of the car?
Because as I looked over to leave Angela, she was gone out of the car. I stepped out of the car to check on her, and that's
What do you
when I
mean
got-
check on her? What was she doing out of the car?
I have no idea. All I know, as it was going on, they were yelling about guns and everything. So I look over and she's gone. I get out to make sure she's okay, and that's when I got hit. No one chased anyone. I got hit as
No,
soon as
yeah.
I stepped in the grass.
Why did you step in the grass for? Why didn't you stay in the car?
I got out to check on her. That's my
That
fault for
caused
being
your broken
afraid.
face. You started this trouble. I believe him when he says that there was a knife in the console of the car, that he had seen it. Oh, I believe that. So your counterclaim is dismissed. Whatever bills you had for your face, take care of them. You went over there to cause trouble that evening. There's no question in my mind that you did. And you got it. You got more trouble than you bargained for. Well, that sometimes happens to bullies. Bullies sometimes get the short end of the stick.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
I didn't smash his window in. I threw my shoe. And
You told
it hit
me in
his
your
window.
answer, madam, that you were aiming for him.
No, I threw my shoe at him, and it hit
Right.
his-
What word didn't you understand that I said?
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Steve Stover is suing Angela Morton and Jessica Shibley for having him falsely prosecuted and for smashing his windshield.
So the police were called, right?
Yes, ma'am.
When were you stopped?
The police never come to us. We went up the street, which my mother lives 3 houses up the street from this. We went to another friend's house, and she called the ambulance. The ambulance come, the police come. I went straight to emergency room.
And what'd you break his window for?
I broke his window because he was trying to leave, and she was laying on the ground, and I was scared, so I just threw my shoe. I wasn't running up to his truck, and I didn't smash his window in. I threw my shoe.
You
and it
told
hit
me in
his
your
window.
answer, madam, that you were aiming for him.
No, I threw my shoe at him, and it hit
Right.
his-
That's
his
what you
truck.
said. What word didn't you understand that I said? You said in your answer, I was aiming for him, and he ducked, and I hit the window.
Yes.
Why?
Because she was laying on the ground. I didn't know what he was going back in his truck to get, if he was going to hit me.
What were you doing out of your car?
I was out of my car because they were screaming stuff. I didn't want them to run up on me and hit me.
They weren't running anywhere. She was in the house, according to your friend, and he had walked away. So what did you get out of your car for?
I got out of my car because him and Brad were hollering stuff.
And you didn't like that they were hollering stuff. You have
No, I didn't know
Did you
what
ever
they
hear
were gonna
sticks
do.
and stones will break my bones, but names will never hurt me?
I didn't know what they were going to do. I didn't want to be
What,
sitting
well,
in the
if you
car
don't know what
anymore.
they're going to do, madam, then you get in your car and you go away. You don't get out of your car to confront them, especially when you've been the aggressor. You don't get out of your car. You stay in your car, and you go to her mother's house, which is 3 houses away. So you were arrested.
Yes, ma'am. I was running. After I got my cousin loose, we all scattered, and we were running to get away from the trouble. They chased me to the truck.
I believe that they chased you to the truck. Oh, I believe that they chased you to the truck. So you were, in fact, arrested.
Yes, I was.
How long were you incarcerated?
I explained the story, what happened to the magistrate at the time, and he let me out on my own recognizance.
And why do you say you lost earnings?
Okay, originally, The first charge, when it was dismissed, they brought up new charges and made it aggravated malicious wounding, and it was a felony. And the city of Roanoke will not allow you, even though I hadn't been convicted, they will not allow me to have my cab license.
Now, let me ask you this question. How many witnesses testified at the criminal trial?
Myself, April, Tammy, and Brad.
Tammy, you were there?
Yes, ma'am.
Step up here, please. Do you know these two young ladies?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you see Jessica get hit in the face?
Yes, ma'am. I saw everything.
Saw everything?
Yes, ma'am. I was standing right there when everything happened.
I would like you to tell me how close Jessica was to the truck when she got hit in the face.
She was at the door to the truck because Steve reached in and he turned around and Jessica was there because they both ran past me to get to the truck. I was standing next to the car when everybody jumped out.
She wasn't a truck length away.
No.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Now, did you see Steve run to the truck?
I saw Steve run to the truck because April went flying. Steve immediately ran to the truck past me, right next to me. Jessica jumped out of the car, ran past me.
She jumped out of the...
She came barreling out of the car. I mean, she jumped out of the car.
How far did she have to run to get to the truck?
About a car and a half length.
But she was right behind him.
She was right behind him.
And where was Angela at this time?
Angela was on the other side of the car, and she jumped out of the car at the same time Jessica did.
Did she run up behind Jessica?
She was at the door as soon as Steve hit Jessica. Steve jumped in the car, locked the window. Angela was right there at the truck and smashed the window.
I have all the receipts also for a rental car.
No, I don't need anything. You're suing the defendants, both defendants, for $5,000. You're claiming that as a result of their actions, you were arrested, you had to go through 2 trials. Were you given a public defender, or did you have to hire a lawyer?
I got a public defender.
And you went through how many days of trial?
The latter half of the trial lasted from about 12:30 in the afternoon to 6 in the evening, and then it was held over. The judge said he would make his decision. He was going to read over all the paperwork, and I had to come back the 26th.
How many witnesses did you have at the trial?
1. Just 1.
Evidently, the judge didn't believe you. Me neither. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $5,000. Your counterclaims dismissed. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Person Heather Watt is suing her ex-fiancé, 19-year-old security officer John Sanderson, for depositing bad checks into her account and then withdrawing the money. John is countersuing, claiming Heather stalked him and caused him to lose his job.
Order. All rise. Quiet in the courtroom. Your Honor, this is case number 481 on the calendar in the matter of Watt versus Sanderson.
Thank you.
Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Ma'am, have a seat, please.
Miss Watt, can you tell me how long the defendant was your boyfriend before he asked you for money?
Approximately 3 months or so.
And what did he tell you he needed the money for?
He didn't really say. He needed it for various things. He said one of the things he used money for was to pay his grandmother, who he lives with. And he just said that he needed money.
And what did you say?
I told him that since he had just gotten a checking account, I told him if he wrote me a check, I could deposit it and withdraw it immediately and give him the cash.
You had an ATM card?
Yes.
And did you do that?
I did.
When was the first withdrawal that you made?
The first withdrawal was on November 4th.
You have your bank statement?
Yes, I do.
Can I see it, please?
Sure. I also have the canceled checks.
I'd like to see those two. First one was November 4th, 2000. And how much did you take out then?
The first one was $100, and a little while after, he said he needed more on the same date, so he gave me another check for $100.
Okay. And then I see there's another check here the next day.
Right.
For $300.
Yes, he decided he needed more money for whatever, various things, and he asked me to do it again, and he assured me that his bank would cover it no matter what, so I did him that favor again.
Was he working at the time?
I believe he was.
Do you remember where he was working?
At a grocery store.
Did he ever give you the money back?
No, he didn't. He promised me that he would pay me back after I informed him that the checks came back canceled. But then the relationship started getting bad. He started getting verbally abusive and controlling, and we were heading towards a breakup, and he told me because he was getting aggravated with me, he wasn't giving me my money back ever.
You also say he has a jacket of yours.
Yes, he borrowed it and took it to Maryland to visit his mother and left it there and never gave it back to me. He said he would do everything he could to get it back, and he hasn't.
Go.
As far as the jacket, we traded jackets. I did leave the jacket in Maryland.
What do you mean you traded jackets?
We traded jackets. I had a South Pole jacket, and she liked it. She wanted to wear it, and I said, well, it was in the beginning of the relationship, so I said, well, if you give me your jacket, then we can trade.
Did she give you back the jacket that you were wearing that was hers?
No, she burned it with a cigarette.
Is that right?
Your Honor, I don't smoke.
Where is his jacket?
It's at my house. I told him he would get his jacket back when I get mine back. I had his jacket dry cleaned for him and everything because it was in dirty condition when I got it.
Your Honor, I was smoking a cigarette, and she had hated it when I smoked. So she took the cigarette and tried to put it out on the bureau, but I yelled at her, and she didn't say anything, but she just turned and put it out on the sleeve of the jacket.
Well, why don't you give her back her jacket?
Because she hasn't reimbursed me or returned my jacket. Also, I have attempted to get the jacket back into Massachusetts. My mother is handicapped now. She doesn't have the means to get to a post office to send it out or anything. She's been waiting for the time when my sister goes out there to visit to mail it back.
All right, we'll take care of the jacket. Now let's get to the money.
As far as the checks, I did write her the checks, of course.
Try looking at me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Because I want to see you looking at me when you tell me the story.
Okay. I wrote her the checks because she had an enormous debt in credit cards, and she was falling behind, and she asked me if she could borrow some money. So I wrote her the checks eventually because she kept hounding me, and I didn't have any money at the time. She didn't believe that I didn't have any money in the account, and also I have a ATM card. I have it with me. I have an ATM card that has a credit card logo on it, and she was convinced that it would just charge to my account. If I'd written the checks and they bounced, it'd just charge to my account, and she'd get the money, and we'd just pay it back later.
Your Honor, that's a lie.
Just a minute. So far, I'm not getting the whole story, sir. Come on.
You know, she deposited the checks, and it takes a few days to post to the account, to clear through the bank and everything. She immediately withdrew the money, bought some money orders, sent them out to her credit card companies, and then a few days later, the bank realized that they were bound. There was no money to cover the checks, so they withdrew the money from the account.
Let me put this in shorthand. You say that you wrote out these checks to her knowing that you had no money in your account. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
That's a crime. Do you know that?
Yeah.
Did you know it before I just told you?
Yeah. I just wanted her off my back.
So in order to help her, you wrote her a series of bad checks. That's what you're telling me.
I wrote her the checks because she had been hounding me for almost a week.
Hounding. So you wrote her a series of bad checks to pay her credit card.
Right.
Is that true?
That is not at all true. When we went to the ATM together, he wrote the checks in the car. We drove to the ATM, and I took the money out of the ATM machine, and it passed from my hands to his, and I never saw it again.
Right, because that's the same date as the withdrawals, dates that you wrote the checks, right?
Yeah.
So what I have to do is now choose which story sounds more reasonable. Now, I could do that by doing those the way we used to choose, you know? Or I can just muster all of my judicial skills, all of my common sense experience, and say that your story sounds a little fishy to me. And if it doesn't make sense, it's not true. Now let's get to your counterclaim. Now that I have disposed of the $500 that you owe her. You are countersuing her for thousands of dollars because you say she harassed you at your job. You were working at a grocery store?
Yes, ma'am.
Costing you thousands of dollars in lost wages.
No, it was $1,000 lost wages.
And what was the other $2,000 for?
Things that she had charged on my credit card.
So let's get to the harassment first. So you're saying that she was harassing you at the grocery store you were working while you were dating?
Yes.
So get over it. If you're still dating, evidently you didn't find that too much of a harassment.
No, I was trying to convince her not to come down so often. And not
So after you tried to convince her not to come down too often and she came down, you still went out to dinner, went to the movies, did whatever you wanted to do. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
So forget it.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Heather Watts says ex-fiancé John Sanderson deposited bad checks into her account and then withdrew the money.
What she charged on your credit cards?
A sweatshirt, a couple of remote control cars. For her nephews for Christmas, she needed to borrow money.
Did you ever charge anything on his credit card?
No, he bought me a sweatshirt and he bought me a Walkman, and they were both gifts offered by him.
Right here,
Let me see.
one of my receipts, one of my statements.
Do you have
I
other
actually
statements?
filed for
Do you have
less.
do you have other statements?
Other statements? Yes, I do.
Well, other statements that you wanted me to look at. Okay, you have here written actual amount for a Walkman, $102,
Yeah.
and general merchandise, $83.97.
Yes.
She says you gave her this Walkman as a gift.
No. Her Walkman
Your Honor,
that she had.
I had a very good Walkman. It was practically in brand new shape, and I gave him that, and he bought me a new Walkman. So the Walkman I gave him was practically brand new. So it was almost like a trade-off, and it was a gift from him.
The Walkman that she had previously,
Yes.
it wasn't working well, and she wanted a new one. And I said, all right, let's go to Radio Shack and get one.
Oh, fine. So you bought her a Walkman. Perfect. And actual amount for radio-controlled car for her nephew,
Yeah.
$83.97. What is that?
I don't know. I know he bought himself a radio-controlled car. He brought it to my job and to my house.
I bought myself one also.
Get out of here.
No.
Mr. Sanderson,
She-
Mr. Sanderson, let me tell you something, sir. You're a really good fibber.
But I really did get her that
Really,
car.
really.
Really.
Just like you really, really wrote these bad checks, right?
Yes.
Right. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $500. Your counterclaim is dismissed. I don't know if you're ever going to get your jacket back. Do you understand?
Yes.
So wear his. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
She totally reversed everything, turned everything I said into a lie.
I just think Judge Judy's a great lady, and she did a good job.
And now the next case.
All parties on Green versus Comer. Step forward, please.
24-year-old cocktail waitress Amanda Breen is suing her former friend and roommate, 26-year-old cosmetologist Tennille Comer, for unpaid rent and bills. Amanda says when Tennille began dating her ex-fiancé, she asked her to move.
Briefly, Miss Breen, according to what I've read in your complaint, you and the defendants were friends and roommates. You were engaged when you moved in together or when you were living together. That engagement terminated.
Yes.
Then there came a time that your friend and roommate started to date your former fiancé.
Yes.
That created a certain amount of friction,
Yes.
and you decided ultimately to give her a choice.
Yes.
Either she move or you were going to move.
That's right.
She moved, you claim, owing you some rent and other assorted bills.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, when did you give her this ultimatum?
It was October of 2000.
And how did you communicate that with her?
There was a letter that I wrote to her. I spent 3 days compiling a letter letting her know how I felt about the situation.
Do you have the copy of that letter?
No, I did not take
Do
a
you
copy
have
of
a
it,
copy?
unfortunately.
May I see it, please?
Sure. On page 4, it's highlighted where she states that if I move out, she cut her losses, I pay nothing.
No,
her
it says,
Shh.
it says that if I move out.
Just a minute. When did you ultimately move out of the apartment?
Middle of November.
Did you pay November's rent?
No, I did not.
Excuse me, Your Honor, I may shed some light into that.
I didn't ask you a question yet.
Okay.
Amanda told me that if I would move out, I would pay nothing. She also told me that if I would move out, her mom would pay my half of the rent until she found a new roommate. In the letter, she states that if I move out, she cuts her losses, I pay nothing.
No, that's not what it said. She says, I'll cut my losses. So you stayed until mid-November.
She actually
Now-
was there until the 27th of November. Was the last day she moved her stuff out.
Is that right? The 27th of November?
No, it was the middle of November, Your Honor.
What?
That's a lie because
Don't say lie.
I was at
Step up,
Amanda's
step up,
house.
step up. I assume you're her mother.
I am, and I was at Amanda's house the day that Tennille signed off on the lease, and she looked right at me and said, I signed off on this lease, I owe this money, Amanda's not going to get stuck paying it no matter what. I was there to make sure that she didn't take things of Amanda, help Amanda move things into her bedroom and lock it up because Tennille was taking things from her. And She called her father while she was there and said, Daddy, I don't have to move out today.
It doesn't make any difference. She was there past the first of the month.
Exactly.
She's there past the first of the month, and this way, well into the month, it seems to me she has to pay rent. Now, you said something very respectfully you want to contribute, so I'll let you stand up here. You are former fiancé, current boyfriend?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, your name?
My name is Brian Hansen.
So what do you know?
I received a phone call in November from Amanda stating that if I would get Tennille out of the apartment, that the rent would be waived.
No phone call.
And
Never
all
happened.
all bills, everything owed, it would be waived.
So she made this arrangement with you,
Yes.
but she had no such conversation with the defendant.
Yes, she did.
When?
November 10th.
No. On November 10th, she sat in my living room and
No,
told me she knew it was her obligation to pay
I
the
don't
money.
understand that. Why would she have a discussion with you waiving the rent for November when you were still living there in November and you were
Because-
planning to move?
Because she wanted me out of the apartment. There had
You
been,
wanted to be out of the apartment, I assume.
No.
She chose to move out.
I did choose,
Now you can sit down because I wasn't addressing you.
I did choose to move out. It was a hostile environment. I don't know.
Right. Nobody wants to live in a hostile environment. And you have to pay rent. November. How much was the whole rent?
The whole rent was $745. There was a late fee that I was charged because her half was not paid, and the total that I had to pay to keep my apartment was $398
For her half.
for her half.
Okay.
Correct.
Was there ever a discussion, Ms. Comer, that you did in fact owe certain monies for past bills?
Yes.
She outlines a couple of things here. Still owe me $192.49.
That was grocery shopping, stuff for redecorating the apartment, trips to Costco for household items that I had receipts stapled together on the fridge, and she went through them in June and left me this note with how much she owed me.
Let me see.
In her handwriting.
Okay. Because that will make it easier. Otherwise, I would tell you just forget about it.
And that's the only proof I have left of it, was the note she left me in her handwriting.
Okay. Did you pay her any money towards this account after June 13th?
I'm looking for that. No, I paid $170.36 on 5/25.
No, 525. I said after 6/13.
No.
Your Honor, may I approach?
No.
I just don't understand why she would write me this letter saying that these bills are wiped away.
Well, I read the letter very briefly, Miss Comer, that said how hurt she was that as a friend and a roommate, you chose to enter a relationship with her former fiancé within weeks of their breaking up, and she was very, very hurt. And let's quote exactly what she says. If you give me the money you owe me, I'll move out. I'll cut my losses, pay you nothing, and you get all your expletive deleted out of my apartment ASAP. And if you don't have your stuff out by November 30th, I have plenty of people who will want to come over here and help me get rid of you. I refuse to live with someone I can't trust, and trusting you is a joke. So if you're asking me why she might have said something that you interpret as, I'll forgive all the money that you owe me, she did it because she was clearly angry and hurt. Ms. Breen, on the flip side.
Yes.
Better now than later.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Affairs of the heart are a very, very difficult thing. I'll tell you that I don't believe that these two people decided to hurt you intentionally by entering into a relationship together.
Right.
I don't think that that's how
No.
it started. I absolutely understand the nature of your letter, but you have to understand that they're probably not bad people. They just got caught up in a relationship, and somebody had to get hurt. But I don't think the design of it was to hurt you.
No.
You agree?
I agree.
Okay. Does she owe you any other big bills?
The phone bill came up to $173.13 total. Half of that was $86.57. I have the bills here showing.
Show them to her.
I have the bills here showing exactly how much is doing. Statement ending November 28th, which she moved out November 30th.
Very
So
good. She clearly
it is
doesn't
still
like
her
handwriting. Would you
responsibility.
take care of that for me?
No problem.
And sorry. And in order for the phone to not be disconnected, I eventually did have to pay the entire
Okay.
amount.
Pay attention.
Okay.
Those are for June, July, August, September, October, until November 28th. Is that
Yes.
right? Okay. What else? Did you pay this bill?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. What else?
108.52 for the PUD. And
What is
then-
that?
That's our power, our electricity.
Show it to her, please.
June through November, the total owed was $217, what does it say, 03, and I divided that in half of it owed by her.
Any question about this bill?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. $774.
$774, that's very close to what I came up with as well.
Move on.
Move on.
Good.
Definitely.
Good luck. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $774. That's all.
Party's
Thank you.
Lee Lewis is suing former friend, 19-year-old Chris Chips, for a bounce check he allegedly wrote to her. Chris says Ashley is trying to frame him for something he didn't do.
Order. All rise.
Yeah, it's case number 427 on the calendar in the matter of Lewis versus Chip.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Judge Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated. Have a seat.
Miss Lewis, this young man used to be a friend of yours. He's not anymore. It is your claim that he asked you to cash a check for him. You said okay. Took the check, went to your bank, deposited the check, gave him some cash, and the check bounced, causing all kinds of fees. You want to be compensated for both the cash that you gave him and all the fees that were incurred by you as a result of this bounced check.
Correct.
And Mr. Chip says that he never gave you a check, right?
Correct.
You have a copy of the check?
I do indeed.
I'd like to see it, please. Is this the way the check looked when you cashed it?
I never saw the check. He deposited it into the ATM. He was
not true.
present with me.
Shh. I didn't ask you anything.
Your Honor, Chris and Nick were both there when he deposited the check into my account. I never saw the check. I asked to sign it, and he said, no, that's not that kind of check.
Okay. Do you have notification from the bank that it's a bad check?
I have my bank statement. They kept all the paperwork for their fraud department. They didn't give me any of that information. This one shows all the fees that were caused, and this shows the check deposited and the money that he withdrew that day.
What was the date?
It was October 22nd. It was a Thursday, around 7 p.m.
It wasn't October 22nd.
The check was deposited on October 22nd. Then the following day, I went into the bank to check
October 26th, ATM envelope deposit, debit adjustment, $200. So they adjusted it on the 26th.
Yes, that's the day that I went in with my grandmother to figure everything out. She had lent me money to unfreeze my account so I could receive my check from work. Otherwise, I would not have gotten paid.
Tell me what he said he needed the money for.
He called me on October 23rd asking for money to go to work over in Spokane on a construction job.
Don't open your mouth.
I take my job very seriously, and so I figured he did as well.
Well, you said October 23rd. I thought you deposited the check on the 22nd.
Sorry, the 22nd. I called the police on the 23rd. On the 22nd, he did call me, and he told me that he needed money to get to Spokane, which is a good 4-hour drive there and back. He was going to spend the weekend doing a construction job. I said, okay. He told me he had a check for $200. He would only need a certain amount, and the rest I could keep as a thank you. And I said, well, that's a little weird, but okay.
He had a check for how much?
$200.
And he needed how much?
He didn't give me a certain amount until we were there, which he withdrew to $120. So I had $80 left over.
Okay. Have him sign his name 5 times, please.
Right on.
You know how I love this job.
Said 5 times? 5, right on.
Comes right after 4. Okay. Now you've done it 5 times?
5 times.
You've written your name 5 times. Before I look at it, sir, is this the way you usually sign your name?
Yes, it's my legal name.
Your name is Christopher?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you know that I can actually read that?
It's good.
I can't read your signature on your answer, sir.
My answer?
Your answer. The document that you signed and swore to and told me was your story. Do you want to see your signature? on your answer?
Yes, please.
Because it doesn't look like these 5.
Okay.
Now you know what I'm talking about,
Yes,
Christopher?
I understand what you're talking about.
Do you understand what I'm talking about, Christopher? So when I asked you, is this the way you generally sign your name?
Yes.
The answer is yes. Could you explain to me why you signed your name in a different way when you signed your deposition?
I do it
your
Chris or
sworn
Christopher.
answer?
I could write it 5 times again for you.
No, listen to me. I want you to explain to me, sir, if this is the way you sign your name, which I can actually read.
Yes.
Why you chose to sign your name differently on the answer that you filed with the court, this court.
Yes. Probably because I was in a hurry when I was writing it. I know it doesn't sound like a good excuse, but I left all the other paperwork at the hotel room. So I had a really, really short time to go through everything, and I'm not sure I initialed or signed my name correctly as it should be as my legal name. But the majority of the time, pretty much all the time I write my signature, it's Christopher Chips.
Do you have a driver's license?
I do, but it just says Chris Chips on it.
I'd like to see it.
It's from 06.
I want to see it.
Oh, wait.
Because you sign it, don't you?
Yeah,
you
they took
sign
it,
it, don't you?
Yes.
Get
sign
it.
the bottom. They have, all right.
Oh, they can get it. We don't steal driver's licenses
Oh, I know.
here. Walk out the door.
Walk out. All right, I'll be right back. Hold up.
Your color is changing.
Me?
Yeah. It's changing.
Right on.
You know what you're saying to yourself? I hope she doesn't call on me.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Where did you work last week? Think before you answer this question.
Okay.
Your life could depend on it, sir.
Okay.
Where did you work last week?
And later today,
How was that case resolved, Mr. Lindsay?
I served my time for the
You pled guilty.
and I served my time for the probation, and it was all dismissed.
You pled guilty. Answer is yes.
Yes.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Ashley Lewis claims former friend Chris Chips bounced a check he wrote to her and refuses to make good on it.
I would almost pay them to do this job.
I have retrieved the license.
Bird, would you get me his license, please?
Certainly.
Might I say again that was...
No, I don't want you to say anything.
December 06.
There we go. I can almost read this. Chris Chips. There you go.
Yep.
Yeah. It doesn't look anything like what you signed here in this answer.
Like I said this morning, I was in a hurry when I was writing it.
Were you in a hurry when you were writing this?
Yeah, I was excited. I got my license. I wanted to go whip my car around.
Take out the rest of the items in your wallet. Bird, get his wallet for me, would you please?
I don't know if I have it.
Just get his wallet for me. I don't want him to.
I have
just get his wallet.
$200 in there, Miss Judy.
Cross Blue Shield doesn't usually have it, right? Chase.
Take a 20
So he chooses not to sign this. So this you didn't sign. You should always sign your bank card, sir. Okay. You got 30 seconds, Christopher.
Tell you my side of the story?
30
seconds. All right. It was December 08. I was working as an automotive technician at a small independent shop in Washington, or in Auburn, where we live. And I got laid off at the end of December, and that's when Ashley came up to me at my last paycheck and asked if I could loan her $200. And I said, that shouldn't be a problem. Like, I've loaned her money before. It wasn't a problem for her paying me back. I just said, pay me back in a couple weeks. And then January 09, probably a couple weeks, 2 weeks later, I ran into her at the mall, and I saw her. I said, do you have my money? And she says, no, I don't have your money. It's just a big story. So, months go by. I'm trying to call her, text her, MySpace. She's just impossible to find, Miss Judy. Oh, with the check. There's no check. I've never seen a check. I've never written a check. I've never signed a check. So, October 14th, I finally run into her at the mall, and she's shopping with her friends. And I say, do you have my money? But this time, it's almost a year, and I'm livid about it. I'm pretty... And so... she said, oh, all I have is like $210 or something. So I say, then that's fine. Give me the $200 that I loaned you over a year ago. And then I get a call a week later saying I owe her over $500 and that she's made police reports, and I've never seen
Can
one
I see the police report, please? You went over your time.
All right.
That one is for the fraudulent check that he gave me. Your Honor, may I say something?
Not necessary. Where do you work, Mr. Chips?
Where do I work? I'm
Where do you work? I asked the question. I knew what question I asked.
I was, okay. I'm in between jobs for the week that I'm down, or the 3 days that I'm down here. So I'm starting again at Scarf Ford in Auburn. So I'm a lube tech at a Ford dealership.
Where did you work last week?
I worked at
Where did you work? Think before you answer this question.
Okay.
Your life could depend on it, sir.
Okay.
Where did you work last week?
Auburn Foreign Car.
Were you paid in check or cash?
Check.
Did you work there the week before?
Yes, ma'am.
How much did you earn?
I earn $9.50 an hour.
How much did you earn for the week?
It's a full-time job, 40 hours, 40-plus hours a week.
Are you independently wealthy? Do you live off a trust fund?
No.
Then you would know exactly how much your paycheck was a week.
It was between $250 and $300 every week, every Friday.
Good, then you can pay her back this money. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $400. Thank you very much. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Miss Judy treated me dirty.
I don't want anything to do with this kid.
It was nice while it lasted, but I could understand how something like this would screw it up.
He's addicted to many different things, drugs, I don't know.
Ridiculous.
I've known him in the past. He's had issues.
We're all guilty of experimenting.
In the past, it was cocaine, and now I'm aware that it's Oxycontin.
No, I don't abuse any medications.
I trusted him very much, actually.
I think it's gone.
I'm good on my own. I don't need him at all in my life anymore.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Lewis versus Lindsay. Step forward.
23-year-old Krista Lewis is suing her ex-boyfriend, 24-year-old Ronald Lindsay, for a loan for bail after he was arrested on drug possession charges.
Miss Lewis, the defendant was your boyfriend. It's your claim that you bailed him out of jail. He paid you back the initial $300 deposit that you gave to the bail bondsman. It is your claim that he agreed to make periodic payments to the bail bondsman. He didn't do that. You had signed the bond, and they just entered a judgment against you in the amount of a little over $1,000.
Yes.
Mr. Lindsay says that your agreement with him was that he would pay you back for the $300, and in exchange, you would make the periodic payments to the bail bondsman because you were crazy about him, and you were hoping to get back together with him after a breakup. Why do you think she would be crazy about you? I'm just curious.
She would make numerous calls and...
why would you think?
Why would I think she'd...
Yeah.
Just from the numerous phone calls she would make and...
I want you to tell me, Mr. Lindsay, what you think you have to offer somebody that they would want to sign your bail and be responsible for it.
Well, I mean, at the time...
Do you have a job?
At the time, yes, I did. I had a very good job.
You had a very good job. What happened to your job?
We had a roof over our head.
What happened to your job when you went to jail?
I was still able to work. I ended up contacting my boss. No, not from jail, but I contacted my boss and let him know what was going on. And he said...
You were violated on probation.
I was put on probation.
Were you violated on probation?
No, I was not violated on probation.
How long did you spend in jail, Mr. Lindsay?
It was only a couple days, Your Honor.
And never went back? It's not an answer, Mr. Lindsay.
Yes, I did go back.
Well, then just answer the question, sir.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
I can only think of my granddaughter who's 12. She goes like this to me. But she's got a whole thing. Whatever.
Yeah.
Did I do that right?
Yeah, you did.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Krista Lewis says ex-boyfriend Ronald Lindsay owes for the cost of bail money after he was arrested on drug possession charges.
Mr. Lindsay, how long did you go back to jail?
2 months.
For what, Mr. Lindsay?
For this case, to get the case wrapped up.
I know of no violation of the penal law which says case wrapped up.
Well, not
what were you arrested for? What did she bail you out for?
It was for domestic violence.
Against whom?
A cell phone got broke, and that's why I was arrested.
Against whom?
Against Crystal.
Is that why he was arrested?
No, it wasn't.
Were you still living together when you bailed him out?
No, we weren't. We had been broken up for about a year, almost a year.
Tell me what he was arrested for, Miss Lewis.
When he called me and told me that he was in jail, he said he was arrested for, he got pulled over initially for a light being out in the back of his car, and they grabbed his license, and I believe it was suspended, and he had drug paraphernalia and some other things in his car, and that's why he was arrested.
On what month and year was that, Miss Lewis?
That was January of 2008.
And the last time you and Mr. Lindsay lived together was when?
April of 2007.
Had you ever had him arrested for domestic violence?
Yes, I did.
Okay, that's not what we're talking about now.
Okay.
We're refreshing your recollection a little bit. Drug paraphernalia, January of 08. Where do you come from?
As far as where I live?
Yeah.
I live in Fallbrook, California.
Okay. You were arrested for drug paraphernalia?
I wasn't arrested for drug paraphernalia. I had a person in my vehicle had paraphernalia on them. So that's where all that falls into play as far as...
What was the charge against you in January of 08, sir?
I ended up getting pinned for something that the person had in my car. He did not want to plead to what was his.
What were you arrested for? The charge?
It was paraphernalia.
How was that case resolved, Mr. Lindsay?
I served my time for the...
You pled guilty.
And I served my time for the probation, and it was all dismissed.
You pled guilty. Answer is yes.
Yes.
At some point, you were violated. Or was the 2 months that you spent in jail the sentence, Mr. Lindsay?
No, that was for the DV case.
That was for the domestic violence case that you spent 2 months in jail. That happened in 2007. Had there been a warrant outstanding for your arrest?
Yes, because I didn't complete classes. That's why I went in and did the 2 months to get the classes and everything squared away.
Well, now you got a lot of problems, Mr. Lindsay. Your biggest problem is, why didn't you pay for your own bail?
She offered to pay for it, Your Honor.
No.
I proceeded to call her.
I want to tell you something, Mr. Lindsay. You talk a lot, but you're not George Clooney. And she doesn't look like the kind of lady who would agree to pay $1,069 for somebody that she's not living with, that she's not involved with anymore, who paid her back the down payment. Doesn't strike me as that kind of lady.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. Want justice? Go to JudgeJudy.com or call 1-888-800-JUDY.
Okay. Do you work?
Yes, I do.
What do you work for?
I work at a resort as a banquet server, and I'm also a full-time student graduating in May.
And you, Mr. Lindsay?
I'm currently working for my cousin, and I work construction. We do remodels for apartments.
You gotta exercise better judgment. You're creating a future for yourself.
I know.
You got it?
I know.
Nice-looking lady, worker, graduating from college.
Mm-hmm. My mom's been telling me that for years, so finally took her advice.
I can only think of my granddaughter who's 12. She goes like this to me. But she's got a whole thing. Whatever.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Did I do that right?
Yeah, you did.
Judging for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,069. Thank you. That's
Thank you.
Parties are excused when they step out.
58-year-old computer administrator Kenneth Strickland for the return of rent and a water bill. Kenneth says Chevelle lied on her rental application.
Order. All rise.
Now, this is case number 502 on the calendar in the matter of Lasai versus Strickland. Parties have been sworn in. Judge, you may be seated. Sir, have a seat, please.
Ms. Lasai, you were a tenant of the defendants for 2 years, according to your complaint, and you claim that for 2 years you overpaid him in rent.
Yes.
And you want to be reimbursed for that overpayment.
Yes.
The defendant seems to say that you caused all the problems yourself, and he owes you nothing. So let's get some dates and facts. What kind of property was this? Was it a house or an apartment?
No, it was a house.
And when did you move into the house?
November 7th, 1998.
Did you have a lease?
Yes.
May I see the copy of the lease? Who moved into the house?
Me and my 2 kids.
Was that all the people who lived in the house?
Yeah, my boyfriend used to be there, but he didn't live there.
You still have the same boyfriend?
Mm-hmm.
Hmm?
Yes.
How old are your 2 children?
11 and 8.
Is he the father of those two children?
No.
But he was your boyfriend in 1998?
Mm-hmm.
Where does he live?
In L.A.
And who does he live with?
His sister.
Right.
Huh?
Right.
Right what?
Just what I said. Right. All right. So you, your two children, and your boyfriend were there most of the time?
Well, he always was in L.A. because it was so far. So some nights he'll come over and sleep over, but mainly he was in L.A. by his mother or his sister because, you know, it was too far.
Right. Okay. This is not your lease, madam, but
Yeah.
you handed me here at least the first page of it, unless there was another lease.
That's the whole contract from Section 8.
I'm not asking you for the contract from Section 8
Well, that's
housing.
the only lease that I have because that's how I got the house through Section 8. And that's the only lease that I have.
What was the entire rent that you were supposed to be paying pursuant to this lease agreement voucher program?
It's on one of those pages that's right up in here, 219.
It says the housing subsidy payment is $581, and the tenant's monthly payment shall be $219. Now, did the landlord get this $581 himself, directly from the state?
Yes, that's the contract.
Did you get
from
that
Section
directly
8.
from the state, $581?
Yes.
Okay. And she was supposed to give you, according to this, $219.
Yes.
Now, you moved in November 7th of 1998, and when did you vacate?
I didn't vacate till January the 9th when he moved my stuff out illegally.
Just a minute. January the 9th
Yes.
of 2001. And what rent were you paying?
For the whole, okay, I was paying $219 up until April 1999.
Okay, so up until April of 1999, you were paying what you were supposed to pay.
Yeah, $219.
And then what happened?
And then he said that the rent was going up, that I had to pay him the $620.
When did he tell you that?
That was in, I think it was March, because I have the first receipt that he handwritten right here for the $620.
So you started to pay him $620.
Yes.
In
April. Here you go, right here.
April of
1999.
In May of 1999. You said you paid him in April $219.
Not April. Here you go. February the $219. Here you go. And this the one April for 1999 for the $620.
Okay. So in April of 1999, you started to pay him $620.
Yep.
Okay. And did you pay him the $620 from April 1999?
Yes.
Until you, you didn't hear my question.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Did you pay him the $620 each month from April of 1999 until you vacated the house on January 9th of 2001?
No, I paid it from April till October. After October is when a big dispute came about. In November was when he said, don't pay nothing the rest of the 2 months while you're there. See, if I get to tell what really happened, then you'll see why. Nothing got paid in November, nothing got paid December, nothing got paid January. I was supposed to move out January the 21st is when he went in my home on the 9th and removed all my property, put half in storage, left half there.
I don't care about your property, madam.
Okay, well, that's
not
what
the
I'm
subject
saying.
of this
That's what
lawsuit.
it-
I'm only asking you about when you paid rent.
Up
So you
until
didn't-
October.
Did she pay in October?
She paid all but $120 of the $620 that she was paying me.
I gave him $500.
Just a second. But she still was overpaying.
I don't want to answer that question until I present my side of the case, ma'am.
Okay. Well, at least according to you, Miss Lassie, you paid for approximately 18 months.
Mm-hmm.
An additional $401 a
Yes,
month.
Yes,
That comes to $7,218,
yes.
which exceeds the limit of this court. Do you understand that?
Yeah.
Limit of this court is $5,000. Okay, let me hear the story, Mr. Strickland.
On 9/26/98, Chevelle Lasai, she filled out an application rental for that home that we were speaking of. And I thought the application looked good. It indicated that she had a job making $3,800 a month. It also indicated that she was had a voucher program. She had a car, a 1998 Mustang, and her Social Security number was on there.
Do you have a copy of that application?
Absolutely.
Can I see it, please?
Okay, I'll just staple it. Rental application. I felt that it looked good, and we got together. We talked about renting a house. We made an agreement, signed a rental agreement prior to the section of the housing agency, and that's this right here.
May I see it, please?
And I was under the impression that she could pay that amount since she expressly signed that contract. About a month later, the situation broke down as I got the information from the housing agency that she couldn't pay $1,251 and that they would only allow $800 because she didn't have a job. She was on welfare. And so that struck me kind of odd. So I called her up, went over there, and I asked her, I said, well, they're not going to allow you to have the $1,251, and I thought that you had a job that could to pay over this voucher amount. And so I asked her why did she lie on the rental application. And he says, don't worry, we're going to pay you. And I said, what do you mean we're going to pay you? And then at that time, her boyfriend came out and he says, Ken, we really like your house, man. Don't you worry about it. We're going to pay you, I said, well, I don't know about this because, I spent a lot of money getting this house prepared, and I also thought I had got someone in there that was truthful and honest, and that didn't turn out to be. By that time, I felt that this person was living there. Not only that, I noticed that she had 3 dogs, 2 out in the yard, 1 in the house, and they also had a bird, which was strictly prohibited by, the contracts that we signed.
So why don't you evict her?
Because it was a very tight spot for me.
No, it isn't.
Mm-mm.
No, it isn't, Mr. Strickland.
No.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Chevelle Lassie says former landlord Kenneth Strickland overcharged her for rent. Kenneth says Chevelle lied about her qualifications for Section 8.
Listen, were you working at air conditioning?
Yes.
On whatever date you filled out this application. Let's
Yes.
see, you filled out this application
9/26/98.
9/26/98.
Mm-hmm.
You were working there?
Yes.
And you were earning $3,800 a month?
Yes, because I was working at Federal Express, too, during part-time.
Just a second. You were earning $3,800 a month?
Yes.
Why were you also getting a housing subsidy?
I've been getting housing since I was in New Orleans.
I don't
And I
care whether-
transferred my housing here, and if you work, that's all they do is make your rent go up some or make it go back down. That's all they do.
You mean if you're making almost $4,000 a month, you're going to get somebody else to pay your rent?
You can be on Section 8 and make good money, just that your rent will be higher. If you're not working, it goes down. So then when I wasn't working, it went all the way down. Because once I moved to Palmdale, I wasn't working at air conditioning no more. I got me another job.
Working for whom?
It's a warehouse place.
And how much were you earning there?
I don't have the total figures in front of me.
Well, give me an idea. Were you earning more or less than $3,800?
I was making less.
Did you tell him that you were going to change your jobs?
Oh, he knew where I was working.
Make $4,000 a month, and the boyfriend lives there, too. What kind of work does he do?
No, my boyfriend was not
Baloney.
living there. He was not living
All right.
there.
Yeah, right. And your obligation was $200 a month?
$219.
$219 a month. That's a very good deal. Most people these days pay at least
Well,
a
that's
third.
what Section 8
I said to you,
approved it to be, $219.
this is a wonderful America. You can just transfer your Section 8 wherever you go.
Yes, because I have a voucher. I can transfer it anywhere I want.
Yeah, isn't that wonderful? Listen, it doesn't relieve you. You know the score. You're a smart man, right? You sign an agreement with Section 8 housing? Sir. Yeah. And your agreement with Section 8 housing is clear. This is what you collect from us. This is what you collect from her. Her obligation is $219. What you're telling me now is you entered into a side agreement with her that she would pay you more than the $219 if she really wanted the place. Is that what you're telling me? But that's prohibited by Section 8, right?
That is
Ah.
prohibited.
It's prohibited by Section 8. All right, but she still didn't pay rent for 3 months. Any rent for 3 months.
Because Section 8, this is what happened. He called me one morning in November, in 6:30 in the morning, and told me because Section 8 didn't pay him his $581 because he didn't do some work that was done in the house when they came to inspect it, that if I didn't pay the whole $1,200 that I had to get out. I told him I was not paying it. I'm going to just move. Went to Section 8, told them what happened. That's when my worker let me know, no, you are not liable to pay what we do not pay him. But he had me under the impression that I was supposed to be paying him the whole amount that they didn't pay him, and it was a lie. And when I confronted him about it, oh, well, that's what Section 8 told me. I said, no, they didn't. You was just trying to get my money. So I let her know I had been overpaying him the rent, and she the one told me to call legal aid to get advice on it, how to sue him to get my money back. And
Did you file tax returns last year?
No. Wait, did I file what?
Tax returns
Oh, yeah,
last
I'm
year.
sorry. I'm sorry.
How much did you earn last year?
I don't know. It's on the papers. I don't have them with me.
Everybody knows how much they earn.
Let me see. About
Everybody
It
knows.
was like 20, 24, 25, something like that. I don't know the exact amount.
Drive a car?
Yep.
What kind of car do you
A
drive?
Toyota Camry.
What year?
1988.
What happened to the Mustang?
I don't have it anymore.
What happened to it?
I sold it.
Well, you were driving a new car. A 98.
I just decided that I didn't want it no more. One of my friends took over the notes on the car. I went to the auction, got me a little 1988
Just a
Camry.
minute. So you were paying out notes on the Mustang in 1998 when you filled out this rental
Yes.
application. And how much was your car note?
With insurance and everything, it was like $451
a month.
Yes.
So you're paying $451 a month for your Mustang, and you're paying $219 for rent.
Yes.
You're in the wrong business.
What you mean the wrong business?
You're right.
I mean, I had help, so I mean, what's the wrong business? I had a boyfriend that was helping me out. So, I mean, what's the wrong business?
The problem is, I got two people playing the system, right? I got two people playing the system, and certainly Mr. Strickland, I mean, his excuse was that he was lied to on the initial application.
No, he was not.
And that's, yeah, he was.
No, he was not. He
was.
I was working at air condition. I wasn't even on the county then.
You were on the county when you, listen, madam, when the government pays your rent.
Okay, well, you can work and have Section 8.
I'm speaking, when the government pays your rent, that means you're taking money from the state because you can't afford to pay your own rent. People who can't afford to pay their own rent don't spend $450 to drive around in a Mustang convertible.
Judge, when I got to Section 8 in New Orleans, I was not working. I transferred my stuff here. You are allowed to work and get Section 8. You are allowed to work.
I didn't say that you weren't, madam.
I mean, well...
I didn't say that you weren't allowed to work. You are allowed to work and still get assistance if you're not earning enough money to pay for your rent. What I'm saying to you is if you can afford $450 a month to drive around in a new car, then you don't need that much money to pay your rent. That's what I'm saying. You don't get that? No, you don't get that. Now, Mr. Strickland, who filled out this application?
Can I see if that's...
Chevelle Lasai filled that out.
Okay. Did you call her employer, sir, to check these references?
I did call her place of employment, and they did verify that she worked there.
For 4 years?
Yes.
All right. Now, Mr. Strickland, let us assume that this is correct. This was not misleading. If you called and verified that she was working there, then she didn't fill out a false application. She may have changed her jobs later. And she did, in fact, have this 1998 Mustang. So why is this false?
Social Security number is wrong.
Oh, you're full of baloney. You're a smart guy.
Okay, I have...
You're a smart guy. What difference does it make if the Social Security number was wrong? What substantive difference does it make? She gave you her name, she gave you her address, how much rent she was paying, where she was working, how much she was earning. You called and verified where she was working. She did, in fact, have the car at the time. So your defense to me initially, at least in your answer, Mr. Strickland, was that she lied initially in her application. I don't see any lies here.
Okay, could I continue then my...
And do it fast, sir.
Okay, soon after she moved in, like I said, the agency said that we signed the agreement, and however, when they had told me that she wasn't capable of paying it, I went to her, and as I say, we talked about this, and at the time the guy came out, he says, we are going to pay it. Then they had 3 dogs there. They had a bird.
I got 3 dogs and a bird. Yeah, go ahead.
And I said, shh. And I told him, in no uncertain terms, I said, because you are breaking the lease, you know, I have to charge you damages on a monthly basis, and that's going to be $451 plus the water, trash, and everything else. And she agreed to do that.
That's not true, Your Honor.
Doesn't make any difference, sir. Sir, you know that the rules state, the contract you signed with U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development are clearly specified that you are not permitted to charge her any more money. Now, if, Mr. Strickland, you say to me that she was going to pay you $219 and that you had an agreement with her boyfriend and you could establish that he was living there, that you had an additional agreement, that he was an additional tenant in that property, I may say, maybe. But you knew that you were breaking the law by overcharging her. You knew that. The fact that she shouldn't be receiving this money to begin with irritates me as a taxpayer. Big time. Big time. Because she says, well, they just transferred from New Orleans to where I'm living.
They did.
Well, she's a little bit smarter than that, Your Honor.
Just a second. Listen to me. She's very smart. She's got the system worked out fine. She's got the boyfriend who lives there. The two of them work, right? And the total income that they have, on their total joint incomes, they pay rent of $219 a month. And at the same time, I'm sure he has a car. She's driving around in a new Mustang, right? Taxpayers are footing the rest of the bill, $580 a month for her rent that we're paying as taxpayers. So believe me, I understand that she's got it down pat, but you broke the rules. And unfortunately, as unfair as it may sound to me as a taxpayer, you are responsible for this $5,000, which is the maximum that I can award her because she actually overpaid over $7,000 in rent. So I have no choice, sir, but to enter a judgment for the plaintiff for the amount of $5,000. And I want to tell you something. It breaks my heart. Thank you.
Parties are excused, you may.
And the return of items she claims he stole.
Order. All rise. Yeah, this is case number 598 on the calendar, the matter of Dixon versus Landers. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Ma'am, have a seat, please.
Miss Dixon,
yes.
You rented a room to the defendant.
Yes, ma'am.
Things happened, it didn't work out, and he moved out, and you claimed that he moved out owing you rent and for some items that he took of yours. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. When did he move into the house?
December 13th last year.
And what was the arrangement as far as the rent was concerned?
It was a mutual agreement, $400 a month.
Okay, is that correct so far?
Yes, ma'am.
Did he pay you rent in December?
No, ma'am, he did not.
When did he start paying you rent?
He paid the first rent February 1st.
How come?
I had to lock him out to get him to pay.
How much did he give you on February 1st?
$600. That just brought him current.
When did he move out?
April the 4th, or March the 4th, excuse me.
Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Did he pay you in March?
No, ma'am.
Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, I didn't pay her.
Did you pay her for February?
Yes, ma'am, I got a receipt for it. My mom wired her money.
How much did you pay her in rent altogether?
We figured it up. It was about almost $1,500, ma'am, for rent.
That's impossible. Show me the receipts for $1,500 for rent.
This is what I have. My mom wired $600.
$600 I know about.
Okay.
But you lived there January and February and 2 weeks in December. That's $1,000.
Yes, ma'am.
Right?
Yes,
Discounting 4 days in March, but let's say $1,000. So
that's what I have currently.
And she gave you receipts for $400. One January 16th and one on March 4th.
Yes.
For $200.
Yes.
And you're telling me that in addition to that, your mother gave her $600.
$600, and I gave her money for phone bill.
I'm not talking about phone bill.
Yes, ma'am.
I mean, forget phone bill. We're talking about rent.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Who signed this rent receipt?
She did.
For $200. Did he give you? Shh, listen to me. Just answer my question. Did he give you $200 on March 4th?
No, ma'am.
No, of course he didn't. That's not even your signature. This is your signature, isn't it? Take a look at this. That's your signature, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
Take a look at this. Is that your signature, Miss Dixon?
No, ma'am.
Of course not. Who signed her name to the March 4th receipt?
She did, ma'am.
No, she didn't.
Yes, ma'am, she did.
No, she didn't. No way. I'm going to make sure of that in 1 second. Right. No way. Somebody else signed the signature on here, sir, on March 4th. You would know who that was, would you?
No, ma'am. She told me, she said, I'll sell my TV. I said, baby, I'm moving. And I said, I need a TV and VCR. She said, I'll sell my TV and VCR to you for $200.
I said fine.
I'm not talking about a TV and a VCR. I'm talking about your rent.
That's what that receipt's for, ma'am. It's for $200 for TV and VCR. And that $200 on February 1st was for rent.
Listen to me.
Yes, ma'am.
You lived there and you should have paid her $1,000 in rent. So far, I got $600 from your mother and another $200 that you gave her January 16th. That's $800. That means you owe her $200 in rent. Now, you give me this other receipt, and the other receipt says $200. You say it's for rent. Now you're telling me it's for a TV.
It's on there.
Rent! You should have paid her $1,000. You only paid her $800. $200 for rent. That's what he owes you for rent, not even counting. May what? I speak, Your Honor? Sure.
His mother never paid me $600.
Ma'am, she did too.
His mother never paid me. She called me on the phone.
Well,
and she was crying and begging and asking me not to make him sleep in his car.
Miss Dixon, listen to me, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
You're not even suing for the $600.
No, ma'am.
Your lawsuit is only for $435.
Yes, ma'am.
And that's including the stuff you say he took.
Yes, ma'am.
So somebody sent you $600
okay.
towards the rent. Here, look, listen to me. Pay careful attention. After 6 weeks, I locked him out. He called his mother, and she called me crying, begging me not to make him sleep in the car. That week, he paid me $600, which made him current. He gave you another $200 on January 16th, and this is your signature, madam.
Yes,
so
ma'am.
that is $800. For the time that he lived there, he should have paid you $1,000. So he
Yes,
owes
ma'am.
you $200 in rent. Please. Okay. Now you say that this $200 receipt was for property she agreed to sell you on March 4th.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Now you're sure about that. The only problem is, sir, she didn't sign it. Somebody else signed it. Maybe your girlfriend, maybe somebody. But she didn't sign this. Somebody signed this with a very fluid signature. Miss Dixon's signature is a little bit craggy. Are you chewing gum?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
That's a side effect of my medication.
Okay. Now, what property did he take from you? I understand from your papers that he took a TV and a VCR and other stuff, but then the police made him return that. Is that right?
The TV and VCR.
The police brought that back?
No.
Who brought it back?
Stanley brought it back.
Because the police had contacted him?
Yes.
Okay. Now, what other stuff did he take from the apartment?
He stripped my bathroom of linens. He stole a box of unopened storage dishes. And he refused to return my key, so I had to have all my locks changed. I couldn't go to sleep in my house with him with a key.
Why didn't you give her back her key?
Ma'am, the police, when the police come out to the house, she did threaten to shoot me in front of the cops.
Yeah.
And the cops told me if she wasn't the age she was, he's going to take her to jail.
Yeah.
And he told me, see, if you come back over here, please call us and have somebody escort you over here.
Why didn't you return her key, is the question.
Because I went to the gas station by our house and called the police, and I gave the key to the police officer, and I guess it never returned there. I have not spoken to the man, but I did give the key to him. He said, I don't want you going up there to the house. She's threatening to shoot you. So I was like, I ain't going up there, and I just gave the key to him in his hand.
Give me his phone number.
I don't have it here with me. It's in my office, ma'am.
Get it. Right now.
I ain't got it with me.
Go call your office. Get me his telephone number. I'll wait.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Betty Dixon says former tenant Stanley Landers owes her for unpaid rent and for stealing her belongings when he moved out. Stanley denies the charges.
All right, so we cannot reach this officer. There's a day off today, so I'm going to have to go with my crack interrogation. On the day that he left, Miss Dixon.
Yes, ma'am.
You had called the police with regard to property that he took, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And at some point later on, the defendant shows up at your home with the property.
May I explain that, ma'am?
Yes.
All right. When Stanley left, I stayed in my room to avoid any further confrontation with him. So after he left and I went to check the premises is when I discovered these things missing. So I called to report a theft. Well, the officer called Stanley on his cell phone and suggested it would be to Stanley's best interest to return my things. So when Stanley came back with the TV and the VCR, he didn't have the other things, and he was very threatening and very frightening.
So what did he do? When you say threatening and frightening, what did he say?
He was shaking his fist at me and asked me outside like he were a man in a barroom brawl.
Well, what did he say? Step outside?
He said, yes. Come outside and I'll show you.
Okay. So at that point, according to your complaint, you called...
I called 911 to get him out of there. I was afraid of him.
Was he there when the police were there?
Yes.
So he stayed when the police came?
Yes, ma'am.
Did the police escort him out?
Yes, ma'am.
When the police were there, did you ask them to have him give you the key?
Yes, ma'am.
And what did he say?
He said it was locked up in his place of business, and he refused to return it until Monday.
Did he return it Monday?
No, ma'am.
Oh, okay. How much did you pay to have the locks changed?
$118. I have the receipt here. I have all the papers right here,
Let me
Your
see
Honor.
the papers, please. When you moved into the defendant's house, you moved in alone. Then at some point, you moved your girlfriend in.
Yes, ma'am.
But then there was a lot of fighting going on.
Ma'am, may I explain?
Was there a lot of fighting going on between
Yes,
you
ma'am.
and your girlfriend?
Yes, ma'am. It didn't work out.
And your girlfriend moved out?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, you say you did take dishes,
Yes, ma'am.
but they were dishes your girlfriend had left for you.
Yes, ma'am.
Really?
Yes, ma'am. She told me I could have them. Dishes, plastic Tupperware.
Dishes I'm talking about. You know,
Plates.
you and I seem to have a problem with the English language. I talk dishes, you talk Tupperware. I talk rent, you talk TV, VCR. I want to tell you something, sir.
Yes,
You've got to get up real early in the morning. You understand what I'm saying to you?
Yes, ma'am.
Good. Dishes.
The dishes were put in at my dealership I was working at the time.
You never brought the dishes into
No.
the house?
No.
Really?
No, ma'am.
What kind of dishes were taken?
It's very similar to Tupperware, but it was a set of 40. Barbara bought them for me for Christmas.
Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
How much did you pay for them?
$40.
Where are the Tupperware dishes that your girlfriend left for you?
That's them, Your Honor.
Really?
Yes, ma'am.
Let's do this with him because I want to torture him for one more minute before I throw him out of here. All right?
Okay.
Is that as true, what you're telling me, as the fact that this receipt is her signature?
Yes, ma'am.
Good. What kind of business are you in, sir?
I'm a sales manager at a local dealership.
What kind of dealership?
Hyundai.
A car dealership.
Yes, ma'am.
There you go. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $435. Thank you.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
He came outside and said, man, for your best interest, you better leave. Because she's going to shoot you. And she said, if you want her age, I'll take her to jail.
I don't own a weapon.
And now the next case.
All parties on Picard versus Lamica. Step forward.
17-year-old cashier Stephen Picard is suing his sister, 20-year-old department store manager Nicole Lamica, for an unpaid loan and unpaid babysitting fees. Nicole says she doesn't owe him because she allowed Stephen and his girlfriend to live with her rent-free.
Mr. Picard, the defendant is your sister. According to what I read, you were living with her for a while. Your girlfriend as well, living with your sister. You claim there came a point where you loaned your sister some money. Then you had an argument with your sister, and you left. You also claim that your sister promised to pay you for babysitting services, and she owes you some money for that, too. When did you come to live with your sister?
In, I'd say October.
October of 2000?
Yes, the beginning of October.
Where had you lived before that?
My mother's house.
Why did you leave to go with your sister?
Because my mother was buying a house to go with her boyfriend, and they wanted to live by themselves, so they basically said to get out.
How old are you?
17.
Were you going to school at the time?
Yes.
You still going to school?
No.
How come?
Because I dropped out.
Who has guardianship of you now?
My mother, but I basically live by myself.
Is your mother here?
No.
So, your mother asked you to leave in October of 2000, and you moved in with your sister. Who is your sister living with?
By herself and her son. We were kicked out over an argument because she wouldn't even give us, we were packing our stuff because we were going to be out in the next week anyways. And she kicked us out. She's like, well, if you're going to leave, just get out now. We had nowhere to go. We're still living in our car since all this happened.
That all sounds very sad to me. Okay. How much did you loan your sister?
$1,095.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Where did you get the money from?
My grandparents had a savings bond, and they gave me the money
How much was the savings bond?
for about $3,000.
What arrangements did you make to repay him?
The original arrangement was that I was supposed to give him $100 every 2 weeks out of my paycheck. I was only supposed to pay him half. My mother was supposed to pick up the other half. I ran into some financial troubles, so me and him talked again, and when I got my taxes back, I was supposed to pay him the money that I owed him.
How much did you pay him so far altogether?
$400.
Is that right?
Yes.
Your sister's defense is you and your girlfriend lived there rent-free for 5 months. Is that your defense?
Yes.
And then you destroyed some property when you left. So let's deal with the first part first. Did you have an agreement for your brother to pay you rent when he came to live with you?
No.
Well, then you can't impose an agreement now.
Well, what happened was I discussed with his girlfriend that if at any time I needed help financially with the bills or anything, they'd be more than happy to help me. And when they first moved in, they were paying for food and stuff like that, so it was an agreement, you pay for food, don't have to pay for rent. But they stopped paying for food, and I ran into some financial trouble. I asked them for help, and they refused.
When did you tell him to leave?
Me and him had a huge argument about some money that I owed him that I told him I was going to pay as soon as I got the money in.
What money that you owed him?
I did owe him some money for babysitting for 2 weeks, but my paycheck was short that week, so I told him as soon as I got it, I was going to pay for it.
So you acknowledge that you do owe him for 2 weeks' worth of babysitting?
Right.
Oh, okay. And how much are you supposed to pay him every 2 weeks?
$125.
Is that right?
Well, for 2 weeks, it was $250, $125 per week.
Per week. So at that time, at the time you told him to leave, you did owe him for 2 weeks of babysitting, $250. Okay. Did you cause any damage to your sister's house when you left?
The door, but she slammed it in my face before she left, and I went outside, said something, went back inside and slammed the door, so it wasn't just me, it was her too.
What kind of damage did he do to the house?
My front door, when I returned home after the argument, was unable to be opened. I had to have an officer push into the door to open it. I have a hole about this size in my wall in my living room. The door's about 100, and the
Not
wall...
about 100. I need an estimate. Not about 100.
Well, the estimate that I got was about 100, 125 on it.
Show me.
I can't. I don't have it on paper.
Well, that's what you're supposed to do when you come to court. Did you take photographs of the door?
I did, but I have a 2-year-old son who likes to damage anything he gets a hold of, and they were mixed in with a bunch of other pictures that he got a hold of, and he ruined
So
it.
you take another picture. I assume you haven't had the door fixed?
No.
I mean, I can't speculate about how much these things are unless you have an estimate. Have you spoken to each other since you left in October?
Nope.
Where are you living now?
We were staying at my girlfriend's grandmother's house, but it was only a 2 weeks thing because she lives in an old age home, so you can only stay there for 2 weeks. But now, and our car just broke down. We had to junk it, so we're not sure we're going to stay.
Where did you sleep night before last?
At her grandmother's house.
Did he give me the honest statement about why he left his mother's home?
Yes.
They just told him it was time to go?
Yeah, he doesn't get along with my mother's boyfriend too well, and they didn't want him living with them when they moved to Methuen.
Do you think you can get over the fight?
Oh, yeah. We're a good family like that. We tend to make up real easy.
Have you been to your sister's house for dinner since February?
I remember not planning on it.
Well, you know, sometimes things happen. You're just angry?
A little bit more than that.
Why?
Because I've been living on the streets, and it's not a nice thing. And it's winter.
You shouldn't be out on your own at 17. You really shouldn't be out on your own at 17. It's unfair for you to be out on your own at 17.
That's what I need this money for, to get an apartment so I don't have to live in the streets.
Okay, well, you're entitled to your money because your sister clearly indicates that she did borrow this money from you. What happened to the other money that you got from the bond?
We bought a car. We stayed in some hotels before we moved to my sister's house because we stayed in a motel for a few weeks, and we had to use that. We were working at the time, and just for expenses, insurance.
Is it all gone?
Yes.
All gone. And you don't have any money either. Judgment for the plaintiff for the amount of $945. Thank you.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Listen up very carefully, and let's start with the ground rules, which are everybody tells me the truth, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Good. You two were roommates for
Yes.
a period of time. Which one was the neat one?
I was.
And who was the slob?
He was. I wouldn't say I was a slob. I wasn't as anal retentive as Jacob. He had roommates that were.
This is your complaint. Mr. Tyler moved out before the end of the lease.
Yes.
Mutual?
Yes. Yes.
The lease was to expire on May 31st of this year.
Yes, ma'am.
On May 31st, you came back.
To verify.
I like to tell the story myself.
I'm
I
sorry.
could do this as a one-man show, except that I need sometimes some input from you.
Okay.
You came back to ensure that he moved out on time because you were still responsible on the lease, and they had your security deposit.
Yes,
right?
ma'am.
And when you came back, you found Mr. Schaefer not being a slob, a little disorganized. All of his stuff is still there. The place is a pigsty, and you start to clean it up.
Yes.
He leaves. Where did you go on May 31st, by the way, when you left?
It was about 10 o'clock at night. I went home to go to sleep.
You went home where?
To my parents' house. I moved back in with my parents.
When did you move back in with your parents, Mr. Schaefer?
I had been moving things into their house over the course
When was the last time you slept in this apartment?
of the morning of May the 31st.
Now, you have to be very careful because I'm going to put you in between a rock and a hard place, sir. When you went back to your parents' house to sleep at 10 p.m. on May 31st, you were aware of the fact that the next day you were supposed to be totally out of the apartment, or midnight that night, correct?
Correct.
But you went home at 10 o'clock,
Yes.
and you still had a lot of stuff there.
Yes.
Well, that's why you're here, Mr. Schaefer, because it is your claim that you had a lot of stuff there that he took out and set outside, and it was either ruined by the rain or stolen. So it's a lot of stuff. Let's see how much stuff you say was there. $713 worth of stuff.
About
Now, why
400 of which was the TV.
Why didn't you take that stuff and have it out when you were supposed to?
I hadn't realized how much stuff I had accumulated. I didn't realize how long
You
it would
mean
take.
it just came up and bit you on the behind? And if you did, why didn't you, instead of going home at 10 o'clock at night, Mr. Schaefer, stay up until midnight and get all the stuff out of there?
I was very tired.
That's too bad.
I figured we could settle up with the apartment. We could pay for an extra day just to get the rest of my stuff
You
out.
weren't going to pay for anything because the security deposit was his.
We would have settled afterward.
I don't believe you. And after you got your stuff out, stop playing with your papers, Mr. Anal Retentive.
Sorry.
You were supposed to clean it after you got your junk out.
I had been cleaning that day, and Jacob actually came by the apartment to clean and to patch holes that he had punched in the walls because he had quite an anger problem.
Just a second. So you had been cleaning that day?
Cleaning and
Is that what
moving
you're telling me? You had been cleaning that day?
it. Yes, I vacuumed the carpets. I was moving my stuff out, just going through the whole process.
Mr. Schaefer, you're full of baloney. Your stuff wasn't out of there. As far as I'm concerned, the landlord could have taken your stuff and thrown it in a dumpster at midnight. He's not responsible for your stuff after midnight.
I cleared it with the apartment manager the following morning.
Oh, you did?
Yes.
Where is the manager? I want to interview the manager.
We don't have that manager
Well,
here.
that's too bad because that's hearsay. When a lease is up, it's up.
Before I left the apartment, Jacob was patching the holes up, and I had said, you know, I'm going home. I'll be back in the morning for the rest of my things. Don't touch anything. He said, okay, fine, and we left it at that.
Is that what happened, Mr. Tyler?
Yeah.
What happened?
I told him that it was unacceptable because when I got there, the fridge still had food in it. There was no cleaning done in the kitchen. The vacuum that was there wasn't even being used on the carpet. I cleaned a bathroom that they never cleaned since we moved in there. It was beyond filthy. I came back to actually patch up the holes in the wall.
What were the holes in the wall from, sir?
From me and parties that they had been at, and I got upset because there was all these kids that were underage drinking, and I have pictures to prove that they were.
Do you have any proof of what this place looked like when you got there?
I have a witness, but she's in the Air Force boot camp right now, and I can't.
Can't help you there with that.
I know.
have no
I'm sorry.
control over the Air Force.
Yes, ma'am, I know.
I like to think I would like to, but I don't. Mr. Tyler,
Yes, ma'am.
you had $440 in security deposit.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you get any back?
I had 140, and I have a copy showing the amount which was taken out.
Can I see that, please?
And also at the top, ma'am, this is the part where I had the power turned off, and Mr. Schaefer was supposed to get it turned on in his name. He didn't.
We
so
never-
the
we
apartment,
never
the
talked about
apartment
that at
took
all.
care of it. The apartment charged me for the water, the trash, the electric that he accumulated.
So you lost your security deposit?
Yes, ma'am. And
Okay.
the added rent was for.
Now, did you patch up the walls?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Because there's nothing here about patched walls.
I have this also that says that there's multiple or new contact, lots of resident damage into.
Well, it doesn't say here anything about charging you for holes in the wall.
No, that wasn't.
Which means that
but they
you
were
patched
charging.
I'm speaking. Listen to what I'm saying to you. It's not here to hurt you. I said there is nothing that indicates from the apartment complex that they are charging you for holes in the wall. That would be a good thing. Then you say, you are right. You are correct, Judge.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Where did you put whatever stuff of his was left outside?
I moved it underneath the stairwell of the upstairs. I covered it with blankets. I wrapped his VCR in bubble wrap. Unfortunately, he said that it rained the next morning in the area.
What happened when you came back the next day? So first of all, what time did you come back to the apartment the next day?
About 9 in the morning.
And what did you find when you got there?
I came there with my girlfriend. This is Nicole. We came there with her truck to get the rest of my stuff. And we came up to the apartment.
Just a second. Step up. Your last name is?
Sierra.
Miss Sierra, when did Mr. Schaefer pick you up?
I came to pick him up with my truck at a little bit before 9 a.m. on June the 1st to go retrieve the rest of our stuff.
Had you been there? What do you mean the rest of your stuff? Had you been living there too?
No, I just...
Some of her stuff was in there. I'm sorry.
Don't speak.
My couch cushions and my vacuum was there.
So my question is, had you been living there?
No, ma'am.
Had you been staying there?
Yeah.
Don't play with me. Had they used your truck to move the other items? Don't look, listen to me. Don't look at him. Don't you have an independent recollection of this? I asked you, had they used your truck to move out the other items?
Yes, some of the other stuff.
How many days had they used your truck?
Probably about 4 days.
Good. And where were you the night of May 31st?
I was at home.
Doing what?
Resting. I work 30 hours a week, and so I was just...
Oy! My God, 30 hours a week! Oh, you must be exhausted. How old are you?
I'm 23.
23, and you work 30 hours
and
a week?
I go to school full-time.
Good. What school do you go to?
I just graduated from the North Lake Community College in Dallas, Texas.
Good. So you graduated from college, and I know from college. I mean, I know how many hours a day one goes to college. So 30 hours a week working, you can manage. So you were exhausted.
I wasn't exhausted.
What about you? How exhausted were you? Where do you work?
I worked at Metro Volkswagen.
And you also go to school full-time?
No, I'm not in school currently.
You work 40 hours a week?
Yes, ma'am.
So you work 40 hours a week and don't do anything else. You've got a girlfriend who works 30 hours a week and goes to school full-time, so you should have been pretty wide awake on the 31st. I don't see what you needed to go to sleep for at 10 o'clock at night. You have no case, sir. He is not obligated to risk his security deposit because you decided you needed an early nap. He secured your stuff as best as he possibly could. If it was ruined by the rain, that's your problem. You should have had it out by May 31st. You owe him $440 for security deposit. Because you lived like pigs, then you have to pay for that. Goodbye.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Throwing rocks in the street, and one of the rocks hit your car, causing some damage.
That's correct.
And you want his mother to pay for the damage. Miss York says, she doesn't think her son was responsible for that. He was merely rolling rocks, although she wasn't there. She says that it was really your conduct that was outrageous on that day. So tell me when this happened.
It was approximately 7 to 7:15 in the morning on May 12th. I was on my way to work. I was traveling down East Yacht Drive.
Where is that?
It's in Oak Island, North Carolina. As I approached the intersection where the children were, they were in the street.
How many children were in the street?
Approximately 5, 2 boys and 2 or 3 girls.
I assume they were waiting for the school bus?
That's correct.
Okay.
As I approached, I noticed that they were playing in the street, so I slowed down. They moved to the shoulder of the intersection. One little boy was throwing stones into the other empty lot across the street, and as I approached, Dylan threw a rock at my car, and I heard it hit.
You saw him do that?
Yes, ma'am.
So you stopped your car, and what did you do?
I got out, and I'm like, you, come here, what's your name? And I said, look at what you've done to my car. I said, where do you live? He said, down the street. I said, you get in my car, and I'm taking you to your mother to show her what you're doing at the bus stop. Well, he had extra stones in his other hand, and he threw those down. I said, no, you pick those up, you put them in my car, and we're going now. So he got into the car, and I took him straight to his mother's house. I told him to go upstairs and take the stones with him to show whoever was there. I didn't know which parent was home. I said, take those and show them what you've been throwing at my car, and send them downstairs to talk to me. And she came down to talk with me.
And what did she say?
Well, she asked him, did he do it? And why did you do that? I told you not to throw stones. I told her.
What did he say?
He's like, well, it was an accident. I'm like, no, it was not. I saw him do it.
He said to his mother it was an accident.
That's correct.
Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Stand up next to your mother. Dylan, how could it be an accident if you were throwing the stones?
I was rolling them across the road, and she was going like 70.
Dylan, I don't want your nose to get long. I want you to tell me how it's an accident that stones that you were rolling on the ground hit somebody's car.
I rolled it, it bounced up on another
You rolled
rock.
it and it bounced up. A rock.
It hit another rock and it bounced.
That's a fib, Dylan. You're not supposed to fib anytime, especially not when you're in court, because that's a fib. If your mother doesn't know it's a fib, I know it's a fib. You and your friends were throwing rocks, right?
Yes.
And one of the rocks hit her car.
Yes.
See how easy that was?
Yes.
What your complaint is, Miss York, and one that I quite telling, is that Miss White exercised very poor judgment in putting your son in her car.
This is correct.
Because I don't think North Carolina is any different from any other place in this country. You don't take somebody else's child and put them in your car. That's very poor judgment, Miss White. I don't think there would have been anything wrong in you saying, if you live right down the street, you go right home, I'm going to follow you, so that you would know where he lived. But you don't take anybody else's child and put them in your car. Now, can I see a picture of the damage to your car?
I do have a photo, but you cannot see the actual dents or chips in the car, in the paint.
Well, it should just be one.
No, there's actually several. I have a police report stating that the officer noted 6 chips areas.
Well, he didn't chip it 6 times. He threw 1 rock. That's according to you.
He had several stones in his other hand. I don't know how many stones actually hit.
I don't know how many children were involved in throwing stones, but you said to me, I saw him throw a stone. I heard it hit my car. There's a difference in hearing 1 or hearing 6.
Your Honor, may I say something?
Mm-hmm.
When she drove to my house, I saw 1 little dot, and then in return, it ended up being dents. I never saw a dent. She even herself said it probably won't be much.
Well, what she's suing you for is $300.
Yes, ma'am.
Which isn't much. I think what your complaint is, quite frankly, despite the fact that I read your answer, and your answer gave me the same malarkey that he was rolling stones. Children don't roll stones. They throw stones at cars. And that's what he did, because that's what he just told me he did.
Right, yes, ma'am.
So you're responsible, because if you want to make sure that your son doesn't do that, and I assume he's done it before, right?
Not that I'm aware of, no, ma'am.
Never heard of him throwing rocks before?
Not at cars.
At anything?
I mean, he's a little boy. I guess he does throw rocks, yes.
Okay, well, if he's a little boy and he throws rocks, then you should be out there with him waiting for the school bus.
Your Honor, I would like to say, when he came home from school, I had asked him what happened. And he admitted that he had been rolling rocks.
Rolling rocks doesn't...
Rolling rocks, throwing rocks, and 1 hit her car. And then he proceeded to show me how she forcefully put him in her car. I have a written statement for...
I don't take statements from people. She had no right to put him in the car, take him in the car, ask him to get into the car, pick him up. Absolutely no right to do that. He wasn't injured. He went off to school that day. Did you go off to school that day?
Yes.
Did you have a good day in school that day?
Yes.
So he wasn't injured, emotionally or physically. But she did the wrong thing, and I've told her she did the wrong thing. So I read her the Riot Act. You still have to pay to have a car fixed.
That's fine.
Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $300, that's all. That I've read for a period of time, and it is your claim that during that time you made a loan to her in the amount of $5,000 as a retainer for an attorney because she was having some legal problems. The defendant says that while she acknowledges that you wired the money into a joint bank account that you had for the attorney, that money was paid back because all that money that was in the joint bank account was put in by both of you subsequently. So the money was repaid.
In my opinion, yes, it was.
When did you start living together, Mr. White?
We started living together in April of '04.
How long had you known each other before you moved in together?
I knew of her approximately a year prior to that.
What does that mean?
Well, I was best friends with her brother and basically met her through her brother.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, when you moved in together in April of 2004, did you move into her place, your place, or a mutual place?
My place.
And, Your Honor, it was July of '04.
She's probably right, Mr. White.
Yeah, we had a birthday party for me in April, so yeah, then it was shortly after that. That's correct.
What was the financial arrangement when she moved into your house?
Financial arrangement, we really didn't establish any. I paid my bills and she paid her bills. She did insist that she put her check into my checking account. That didn't have anything to do with this particular item.
Just a second.
Yeah.
She put her paycheck into your checking account.
That's correct.
How much was your paycheck, Ms. Rundell?
$16.88 a month. And it was not a joint checking account. It was his checking account. I did not have access to that account in any way.
When did you make your first deposit into his checking account of $16.88?
I believe it would have been the month of July. I moved in roughly maybe the second week in July after we'd returned from vacation.
So let's be on the safe side. Let's say August.
That would be safe to say.
And how many months did you put your paycheck into that joint account?
Every month.
Until when?
Until January. My paychecks ended in January. Unemployment
August,
started.
September, October, November, December. 5 months.
And January.
And January.
Correct.
So it's 6 months, and that's easily verifiable by looking at your bank statement.
No, I don't agree with her putting that much money in there. She didn't have any credit, so she was using my bank to cash her checks. I wasn't aware that she was putting that money into my checking account every time.
This is a savings account statement right here. I could have put it in my savings had I been allowed to. This shows that there was no money that went into this account until a tax return was automatically deposited in the month of March.
Do you have your bank statement, sir?
No, ma'am, I don't. I just have a check that I had wrote her. I didn't even know she had a savings account.
I don't care whether you knew she had a savings account or not, sir. You get a checking account statement every month.
Correct.
And every month you would see a deposit in there.
Right.
And that deposit would not be your deposit. I mean, we know what
Correct.
our deposits are. So she
Correct.
was depositing her check into your account. And that account would also show certain withdrawals if she was using your checking account as merely just a revolving door for her money. She was putting it in and cashing it.
She was putting her check into my checking account during the beginning of her stay at my place, and then we were using my check to write checks for all the bills.
It was not in name a joint account, but it was a joint account because that money was being used to pay joint bills.
Correct.
$16.88 per month.
Correct.
Are you chewing gum?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so let us assume everything that you say is correct, that for 6 months you put in something.
Yes.
That comes to $10,128. Now, why did you need an attorney?
I had filed a police report as a mandatory reporter with the police department there locally where I live.
Is it a criminal matter?
Yes, ma'am.
Is the matter still pending?
Yes, ma'am.
And you retained a private attorney?
Correct.
And you discussed that with Mr. White?
Correct.
Is that right, sir?
Yes, I had no knowledge of her making this report.
I don't care about the
Okay.
substance of the case.
Okay.
The need for an attorney, something else.
Correct. We did discuss the need for an attorney, and it was important that she hired a good one for this situation.
So what did you say to her?
So we made arrangements to lend her $5,000 off my credit card.
That's a conclusion, sir.
We had talked about this and discussed we needed to retain $5,000 for this attorney, and we decided to take this off of a credit card that I have. I had no credit card debts at all. One of the qualities she talked about with me is that I wasn't in any debt. This was a special occasion that I needed to help her out on, so I decided to take a credit card, dump the credit card into my checking account, and give her a check on November 28th for $5,000. She told me when she got her income tax that she would give me half of it in one lump sum and make payments on the rest, and I was fine with that.
That is not true.
Well, tell me what the discussion was, Ms. Rundell.
The discussion, there was never a discussion around the credit card, just like there wasn't a discussion about how we were going to pay our bills when the money was lumped together in the checking account. What we had discussed on many different occasions was how we were going to use the money wisely. This chunk of money, which would have been around $6,000 for the tax return, what were we going to do with it?
You were going
many
to
different. I was talking. On many different occasions, we talked about different things. We talked about we would take a trip, but not too far. Didn't want to spend too much money. We talked about paying a big chunk of it to Bank One credit card, which the attorney came off of. We also talked about paying off his Washington State unemployment money that he still owed when I moved in was $4,000. It was down to $1,500. We wanted to eliminate that payment each month.
All right, let's get back to talking a little bit turkey, Ms. Rundell. It is your defense that you put in your check into the account and you were living like a married couple.
Correct.
And when you moved in together in July, it was your intention that your money be spent on household bills. And you didn't need an attorney until what month?
October.
That's not a household bill. So that what it really did was cut your participation in the household bills in half. Because if you deposited $10,000 into this account to pay for your expenses during the course of that 6 months, madam, and you withdrew $5,000 out of it for your own personal use, then it's very possible that Mr. White is correct, that it was anticipated that you would be repaying this account when you got your tax return.
It wasn't repaying that account. The tax return coming in and was going to be used to pay bills wisely, not just on a credit card. This has nothing to do with paying back the credit card. It has to do with Mr. White and his continued abuse and harassment that has not stopped and will not stop.
It will stop when he gets his money back.
That's right. Trust me, it won't stop.
There isn't a question in my mind that we probably wouldn't be here having this discussion if the two of you were still together. Because if you were still together, you would be continuing to contribute your $16.88 a month into this account. And eventually, this $5,000 would be paid back from payments to the credit card. But you're not together anymore. And Mr. White feels as if he's a fool because he had this outlay of money, and now you're not together anymore. You got your tax return back. There was discussion about paying back this, whatever, Capital One card or whatever it is. Some of the money that he gave you to pay your lawyer. You're still using the services of the lawyer, correct?
Correct.
Have you given the lawyer any more money?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so you're still living off of that $5,000. And he says, minimally, our agreement was that she was going to continue to put her $16.88 into the account so we could at least pay the lawyer back from that money. That stopped. Listen, you want him to leave you alone?
I do.
Pay him his money. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $5,000. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Yes, ma'am.
I gather you feel he's been a little bit irresponsible.
A lot, yes.
You co-signed for a motorcycle for him a couple of years ago.
Correct.
He stopped making payments on the motorcycle.
Correct.
You took it into your custody. You have the motorcycle.
Correct. It was going to be repoed.
So you made all the payments on it so far?
Correct. When the bank called in regards to being repoed, our credit would be, in bad
jeopardy.
order. Exactly. And so I asked TJ, why aren't you making payments? So then he said at tax time he'd be able to make up what I've already paid and take over payments at that time.
But he didn't.
Correct.
Oh, so now you took a motorcycle back over a year ago.
04, correct. It's been sitting in my backyard.
Okay. Who has the title to it?
I actually got the title. I got it last month. It's actually in his
Great.
name.
Great.
I have pictures of the bike, too, if you'd like to see it.
I assume you...
No, he actually didn't. He laid it down, and then it's like all dismantled, and apparently he blew out second gear. I don't know what all damages to it, but...
Okay. Have him sign this over to them, please.
Your Honor, I really don't want the bike.
Then you shouldn't have signed for him. You shouldn't have taken it back over a year ago. When you took it back over a year ago, madam, what you should have done is gotten it, sued him, and come to court immediately. Now what you have to do is you have to sell it, and if there is any shortfall between that and what you owe on the bike, you may be able to sue him again. But right now, you have to take the bike and you have to sell it. Now let's talk about the bail. You bailed him out, again, over a year ago.
Yes.
Tell me how that came about.
He called one night. He had gotten a DUI, and I went down the next morning and bailed him out of jail.
When was that?
Late of 03.
In 2003?
Yes.
So 2 years ago.
Yes.
When did you co-sign for this bike?
In 2002.
And what was he driving in when he had a DUI?
Another car of his.
Did you call them?
Yes.
Did you tell them you were going to pay him back for the bail?
I just asked him to bail me out of jail.
And they did?
Yeah.
Were you working?
No.
How'd you expect him to pay you back?
Whenever he got a job.
There are loans, and then there are what we call great expectations. I would assume that when he called you and said, I'm in jail, come and get me out, you said, I'll be right down. Right?
Not quite, but
What did you say to him?
I reluctantly went down.
Right. Because you love her.
No, actually, I was not going to bail him out because that was
Oh,
his
that would have
second
been very
time out.
smart.
And-
I wouldn't have bailed him out.
Well, and then he
Maybe-
felt sorry for him.
And this
then
was in
he bailed him out.
2003. How old are your children?
2 and 8 months.
Oh, at least he might not have had one. He makes a lot of bad choices.
Correct.
Isn't that right, sir?
I guess, yeah.
What do you mean you guess? How old are you?
22.
You're 22 and you have 2 children.
Yep.
And how old is the mother of these children?
21.
And where does she live?
With her mom.
And where do you live?
With my aunt.
That sounds like a wonderful family. Now, you hesitated for a moment, Mr. Frost, when I said you've made some bad choices. Let me explain to you what you've done. In your short period of time, you've probably screwed up their credit. Are they rich people?
No.
Well, you stuck them with a motorcycle loan, right?
Right.
You stuck them with your bail, right? You stuck perfect strangers with taking care of 2 babies. That's your girlfriend's parents that she's living with, right? Because I guarantee you at their stage in life, they didn't anticipate taking care of 2 infants. Because not only did you make 1 mistake, but you couldn't keep your thing in your pants long enough not to make 2 mistakes. And you say to me, you have a question as to whether or not you made mistakes?
Yeah.
You have a question?
No.
So you could have avoided the whole thing by saying, you know, I was a dumb kid.
Okay.
Dumb kids make dumb kid mistakes. They don't make babies.
Right.
Not 2. Who do you work for now? That's not a question that requires a lot of thought. You have 2 babies.
For Thompson Tile Maintenance.
You work full-time or part-time?
Part-time, and I go to school full-time.
Where do you go to school full-time?
Davenport University.
What kind of school?
I'm going for medical.
You want to be a doctor?
Not a doctor. A nurse.
Thank God. Do you see your grandchildren?
I do now. There was a period that with this loan, I didn't see him for about 7 months or something like that. And then he had his second baby, and I ended up going to the hospital and seeing the baby. And, you know, he has since told me, you know, him and his fiance are paying off her parents some money. And I think he owes me this money for this bike. I want him to pay me for this bike because I didn't want the bike
I think that morally he should do that.
Yes.
I just told you the legal result of what's going to happen here today.
Right.
If your son chooses to take the moral high road, that's up to him. You paying the maternal grandparents of your children some money?
I'm not. My fiance is.
For what?
I don't know, whatever they loaned her.
What do you spend your money on?
He
Baby
gives it to her.
stuff.
Well, that's good.
Right. No, I agree.
That's
She's
good.
a
That's
blessing.
fine.
She's a blessing.
That's fine. Somebody's got to support these babies.
She's a blessing. She keeps things straight.
So you give her money?
Yeah.
How much?
My whole check.
And what do you give to your aunt?
Nothing.
Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, put a lock on your checkbook.
Right.
Yes,
Done
ma'am.
did.
Good. Goodbye. We're at a party where there was drinking going on, and at that party, this young man jumped on the hood of your car, caused about $750 worth of damage on the car, and you want him to pay for it.
That's correct.
Now, young Josh says that everybody was drunk. He's not exactly sure what happened, but his father has an interesting defense. So you're going to tell me at this party.
It was on or about July 14th.
Was it July 14th?
I believe so, it was.
And at whose house was the party?
At this girl named Emma's. Her graduating class was the year before me, and I knew friends that knew her.
Emma has a last name?
I'm not sure what her last name is, ma'am.
How many people were at the party?
Maybe about 20, a little less.
Were you an invited guest?
I think it was kind of like just a get-together of the people who had known those people. So I went with friends. So no, I was not.
It was easier, right?
Yeah.
No, you weren't invited
No, I
guest?
wasn't invited.
What's the drinking age where you are?
21, ma'am.
How old is Emma?
19.
Were her parents home?
No, they were not.
They gone for the weekend?
Yes, I believe so, they were.
Listen out there in television land. Lock the doors. If you go away for a weekend and you have teenagers, your house will never be safe. That's true. Right, Matthew?
Yes.
Matthew Johnston says former friend Josh Valentine jumped on the hood of his car when he was drunk.
Okay. Now, tell me when it was that Josh jumped on the hood of your car.
It was about 11:30 that night. Christopher noticed that a friend of ours, David, he was already past curfew, and he was very intoxicated, and we needed to get him home. So Chris suggested we take him home. So about 15 minutes later, we're outside in the parking lot putting David in. We're all about ready to go.
Putting David in the car?
Yes, David in the car. And then Chris is in the front seat.
Who was driving?
I was driving.
Your car?
Yes. And so I get in the driver's seat. Everyone gets inside the car. And next thing I know, Josh comes out from the left side,
and jumps on my car. His knee hits the side of the fender on the left side of the car. At that point, I was just furious. I just turned on the car and just left. Went and took David home, went and brought Chris back. Stayed at the party for maybe like another hour. Ended up that Andre needed a ride home. His car was parked at Josh's house. Josh as well needed a ride home. Josh was pretty drunk. I didn't really want to take Josh home because he just jumped on my car. Andre said we needed to take him home.
Is that right?
No, ma'am.
Step up. You're Andre?
Yes, ma'am.
You needed a ride home because you had been drinking?
Yes, ma'am.
And he had been drinking?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you see him jump on the hood of his car?
Yes, ma'am.
Tell me what happened.
Josh actually comes on and puts his hands on the car. It doesn't, I mean, could have been forceful, but it wasn't enough to see that would knock a dent in the car. But yes, he did slam on the front of the car, told him to stop, and we didn't want him to take Dave home.
Well, you did a lot of double talking there at the very end, but what I gather that you said was, yes, you saw Josh, who had been drinking, put his hands in a forceful manner on Matthew's car.
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect. Do you have a car?
Yes, ma'am.
What kind of car do you have?
A 02 black Mustang.
Where did you leave the car?
At Joshua's house, ma'am.
Why?
Because I wasn't going to drive that night.
Because you were drinking.
Yes, ma'am.
Smart. So you're smart enough to know that you don't want to get into a car somebody driving who has been drinking.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, to drive you home.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that right?
Yes.
One must assume from the fact that you allowed Matthew to drive you home that you felt as if Matthew was in good enough shape to drive you home.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Valentine, now I'll hear you, sir.
I feel that based on the circumstances, Matthew was in fact drinking quite heavily.
You don't know that. That's not according to your witness. Not according to your witness. Your witness just testified, sir, unequivocally, that he felt sufficiently comfortable with Matthew driving him home, and he would not have gotten into a car with somebody who had been intoxicated, so that he left his car home because he wasn't going to drink and drive, but he allowed Matthew to drive him home because Matthew was sober enough to drive home. So let's get over that. Okay, now you're going to tell me why he's not responsible.
Well, maybe he is to a certain extent. I would say that he has some partial responsibility, possibly, if anything. There are some inconsistencies in Matt's story. First of all, he didn't contact Josh the next day.
I didn't ask about contacting him the next day.
Oh, I guess I feel that Matt has responsibility. I feel the people that put on the party had some responsibility.
Why does Matt have responsibility?
Because he was drinking.
What does that have to do with the dent on the car?
Well, I think if you're going to go out and go drinking and driving and partying and you're underage, you probably should not be surprised if there are going to be negative consequences. I think he should have some responsibility.
That's what we're talking about here, Mr. Valentine, responsibility.
Yes.
Where's yours?
We have maybe some partial responsibility.
Which part? Let me hear which part you think you have responsibility for.
Maybe a third of it. That was what I felt was fair and reasonable.
Well, there is a part of me, sir, that says that I think that you have the right, if you wish, to sue the people whose home this party was held at for inadequate supervision.
Okay.
If that's what you think you want to do. But you, caused damage to his car. Can I see an estimate for the car, please? $649.07 to pull out the dent. Is that right?
That is correct.
That's what you owe him.
That seems
You go
a
to
bit
school?
steep.
You go to school?
I do not. I work.
Really? Terrific. What kind of job do you have?
I work at BAE Container Solutions making...
How old are you?
Missiles. I'm 18 right now.
You work full time?
No.
What do you do at the other part of the time?
Not work.
What do you do?
Stay at my house. I don't know.
Is that productive?
No, it's not. I can't have a full-time job yet.
How about going to school?
I choose not to.
Well, do you mow the lawn, clean the house, build a garage? What do you do?
I live in my own apartment with Andre and my other friend Justin.
Who pays the bills?
Me, Andre, and Justin.
With a part-time job?
Yeah, it's really cheap out there.
Great. Okay, judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $649.07. That's all. Thank you.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
In the complaint several years ago, you knew Mr. Legant, who was a psychic reader?
Yes, Your Honor.
And he owns a psychic school?
Correct.
How long had you known him?
I first met him in 1998.
How?
I saw an advertisement of his in a newspaper.
And have you been using him for readings since?
Counseling, yes.
What particular training do you have?
Clairvoyant training of a one-year intensive,
3 years of teacher's training. I have over 6 years of training. I also have my certificates if you'd like to see those.
In any event, you wanted to take a trip. Mr. LeGrand was interested in going. You discussed it. He didn't have the money. According to you, you loaned him the money to go, and the understanding was that he would pay you back either in cash or readings.
True.
He went on the trip. For a while, he did, in fact, pay you back by doing readings. Somebody would keep a record of, I assume, of how much each reading was, and you would check off how much was left on the debt. At some point, he missed a scheduled appointment.
Well, actually, Your Honor, he was making payments also. There was no set schedule for our appointments. It was whenever we decided.
So he was paying in cash as well?
Actually, yes. That was mostly the agreement.
In check and or cash?
He would deposit it directly into my account, and sometimes he paid in cash, and sometimes he wrote a check. I have the deposit slips.
I'd like to see them.
Sure.
I mean, he had your bank account number?
Well, yes.
Did you have a...
Well, it wasn't very friendly in terms of a social relationship. I mean, we knew each other professionally, and I trusted him as a teacher and my mentor.
All right, so I see you made some payments to her.
That's correct.
So you consider this a loan?
No.
Well, what was it for?
It was a donation.
No. What was the money that you paid her?
That was the interest. Initially, this is the third trip I've been on with Miss Jessie.
We're talking about only this one, sir.
Okay. So in this case, Miss Jessie wanted me to go on a second trip to the Philippines. I clearly explained to her that that was not something I could afford. So she decided to make a donation to the school so that the school could sponsor my trip. In exchange for that donation, she was to receive hours of readings. The payment she received was when she asked for me to cover the interest on her visa. And I agreed to do that. I was grateful for the donation. I was grateful for the donation. I have the donation right here. I have the check.
I see it too.
It says donation with a big smiley face.
Were these paid out of a private account or the school account?
It was paid out of the school's account.
So all these checks were school checks?
Mm-hmm.
None yours?
Right.
You're not very clairvoyant, sir. Show this to the defendant, please. That's not the school's account, is it?
Oh, no. I may have used my own account to make a check payment. That's entirely possible.
What?
Yeah, you didn't see that one coming, did
What?
you?
You didn't see that one coming at all? Show him this one. Your account or the school's account?
That's my account.
One more. Uno más on this page.
Also my account. Your Honor, the...
Stop! I'm not going to read your account number, sir, but it also appears that when cash was deposited directly into her account, it was deposited directly into her account with the same numbers on the accounts that were on these checks.
Can I see that?
Yes, certainly. Here you go.
Huh, that's interesting. Because when I called the bank to get copies of this so that I would know in preparation for you, they explained to me there was no way to trace that information.
Well, you do see what I'm looking at, don't you?
I do see what you're looking at. And the agreement I had with her was to pay the interest on her card.
All I'm asking you is whether the cash and the checks that she ascribes to this loan came out of the school's account or out of your personal account.
Right.
So you would be saying now that it came out of your personal account.
Obviously.
Obviously.
I believe there were others that were taken from the school's
I'm
account.
looking to see yours.
And
you have
like
any
I
proof?
said, the bank said
Listen,
they
no,
couldn't
no.
trace this
No,
information.
listen to me, sir. Listen to me. Show me any checks that you have from the school to pay her.
I don't have those.
I do, however, see some checks, sir, that just say banks like they're from a different account.
That's right.
So sometimes you paid out of your personal account and sometimes you paid out of the school account. You getting my drift, sir?
Not fully.
Well, when you have a business and you start commingling money as to what is a business expense and what is not, you have a serious problem. And clearly, in looking over this paperwork, it appears to me as if you were commingling what you considered a business expense with a private debt. The IRS doesn't like that. You should know that.
I did what I could to make sure she received her interest payments in a timely manner.
Don't you make a living from this company?
Yes, I do.
Then you should have paid her, not commingled funds. That's a very bad thing, Mr. LeGrant. If you commingle funds, the IRS is going to come and get you. Can you tell me what happened that precipitated this lawsuit?
He had made his last payment in November, and in December he promised me a payment on December 20th. And I was counting on that, and it was Christmas time, and I didn't get the payment. And I had an appointment with him scheduled for the 22nd, which I was going to discuss the matter with him, and then he didn't show up for the appointment and didn't let me know.
Does he come to your house, or do you go to his
No, it's a
school?
telephone. It's a telephone.
It's a telephone?
Yes, we hardly ever see each other in person. And so I left him a voicemail saying that, I think that this was unfair and I should be treated better. And at which point he sent me an email saying that he really thought that was the most mean, vicious thing anybody had ever said to him. And he really, literally never talked to me again.
What did she say on the voicemail?
She was incredibly ugly. I never finished both voicemails because it was too irate and too mean, too vicious, attacking everything she could think of and everything she knew about me. Basically, what happened in the beginning of December, I was still working with her and giving her readings. She explained to me that she lost her job, she was afraid she was going to lose the mortgage on her house, that she was in an incredibly strapped financial position. She began asking me if I could borrow money from my aunt to pay this balance off, and I explained to her that the agreement was an exchange of readings. This was not
Well, that's
loan.
not true, sir. That's not true, because there were payments made both out of the school's account and out of your personal account.
That was
to her.
interest.
That's what you say. That's not what I find. Keep going.
So she was explaining all of this to me. I explained to her that this was not the agreement, this was not what I was going to do. She pressured me for a number of weeks. She did ask me to make a payment on the 20th in December because 25th was a Sunday and also Christmas. I explained to her that I get paid on a certain date, it takes a number of days to clear the bank. I'll do the best I can to try to do that, but that may not happen. And that went in one ear, right out the other.
All right, good. Did you make a payment in January?
I did not make a payment in December.
Did you make a payment in January,
or
is my
January,
question.
or since.
Right. Why not?
Because she threatened to sue me.
She didn't sue you in January, did she?
No, she filed, actually on January 20th, I was on the way to the bank because she had left these voicemails. I wasn't sure how I was supposed to handle this situation, and I told her that I would get back to her in January.
Well, so you were sort of jerking her around.
No.
Because you didn't pay the amount in December, because you said you get paid on a certain day, and you don't know whether it'll clear and whatever. All right, so you don't pay it December 20th, you don't pay it December 23rd. There's December 27th, December 28th, December 29th, December 30th, December 31st. She doesn't hear from you until January 20th?
No, she received an email from me explaining that I felt her messages were incredibly mean and
Well,
that
show
I
me
would...
the you have the email? I would like to see the copy
sure.
of the email that you sent to her.
I was very angry.
People who owe money usually are angry. Okay, so they were the meanest, cruelest voice messages, and you choose to cut her off and not have anything to do with her until the holidays are over in December, because you don't want to be bothered during the holidays
Because
with
my
any
mom
bad
was in a serious
with any bad
accident.
vibrations. And I'll let you know how I plan to handle the future in January. Well, what'd you do at the beginning of January, sir? The holidays are over.
Yeah, I was thinking about how to handle the situation. I wasn't sure how to do that. The 20th was coming by in January. I decided to make
20th?
it the 20th of January.
Well, so you were thinking between January 2nd and January 20th.
That's right.
Let me hear you counterclaim, Mr. LeGrant.
After Miss Jessie complained about this December incident, she did request communication from me. I did say that I would communicate with her in January about the situation, Before I had a chance to do that, she went to my website. She scoured through all of the emails, addresses, everything she could get, and began emailing everybody from clients, students, about the situation. Very, very crazy emails.
Well, show me.
Sure. Here's one she sent to the travel agent. I'll give you all of them. And also, as far as missed appointments, that has happened in the past.
I'm not interested in that. All she does is talk to whoever she talks to about the fact that you owe her money.
These are my students
Who
that
cares?
she ripped off my website.
Who cares? Shouldn't have had them on your
It
website if
has
you'd
none
want.
of their business.
Listen to me. She's entitled to do that. She doesn't slander you, sir. She says that you have an honest dispute with her. She believes you owe her money, and you are not paying her the money that you owe her. She doesn't say anything scandalous about you. You may not like it, but she doesn't say anything that's actionable. Can you please explain to me how a school professing to be spiritual and ethical can attempt to steal this money loaned in good faith? That's the way she feels.
No, it wasn't a loan.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you something, sir. I am the final arbiter of that, and I'm telling you that it was a loan. It was a loan because you repaid it. And you not only repaid it, you repaid it, some of it out of your funds and some of it out of school funds, which you can't do.
That's not correct.
Listen. Some of the people that you deal with, Mr. LeGrand, may revere you as being some sort of spiritual leader. I guarantee you, I'm not one of those people. All right? I'm telling you, you went on a trip, you slept, you ate, you took a plane, not the spirits, your body took the plane to the Philippines and had a nice trip. Pay for it. Judgment for the plaintiff for the amount of $2,697. That's all.
He couldn't make it because he's had too many issues with her and pending court problems with her that he has to take care of. So that's why he couldn't make it.
He didn't have any pending court matters today, did he?
None
No.
at all.
None at all. He never
None at all.
has.
But he decided to take the high road and just be absent, even though he probably created all of these problems to begin with. Now, when did you last live with, what's his first name?
E. Lincoln.
E. Lincoln?
E. Lincoln.
E. period Lincoln?
Yes.
Well, what's his first name?
E. Lincoln.
There's no period between the E and the Lincoln. It's just E. Lincoln.
E. Lincoln. When did you first live with E. Lincoln?
When was the first I lived with him?
Yeah. First, give me the year.
Probably it was 2001.
And when did you last live with him?
2005.
When in 2005?
Around February, March.
And when did you start to be involved with Mr. Lincoln?
We officially were involved in October.
Of 2006?
2005.
Before a friend.
So there was a little overlapping?
No.
Yes. I was living with them and she knew.
Okay, so there was a little overlap.
Yeah.
They weren't
keeping it
together.
Yeah.
Hey. There was some overlapping. Now, it is your claim, Ms. Garcia, that the defendant vandalized your car, not on one occasion, but on multiple occasions.
Yes.
And despite the fact that you never saw her vandalize your cars, you have proof by way of admissions that she did, in fact, vandalize your cars. The car was vandalized.
On the morning of October 23rd, 2005 was when I noticed it, so it was that night.
Okay. And what was the nature of the vandalism?
She had keyed...
Don't tell me what she did.
She keyed
Someone.
profane
No,
words.
listen to me.
someone.
Shh.
Someone keyed profane words on my hood, my driver's door, and the back driver's door, because it's a four-door, and put key marks on the rest of it, and knocked off the driver's side mirror.
Okay. Do you have photographs of the car?
Yes, I do.
I'd like to see them. Now, with regard to this incident in October, what proof do you have that the defendant was responsible?
Well, before my involvement with E. Lincoln, I believe he said it was like in 2002.
Don't tell me what he said to you. That's hearsay.
In 2002, his vehicle was vandalized the same exact way.
You cannot tell me anything that he said to you because that is hearsay. Do you have any proof that the defendant committed that vandalism on your car?
I have a police recording because on the night of January 3rd, 2006, she was calling my phone saying, I'm going to vandalize your vehicle again. My roommate...
Okay, so you have a recording.
Yes, and the police report that stating that the police...
Let me see it, please.
That he heard the recording.
Where is the recording now?
They couldn't get it through, but we do have it, but it's real fuzzy. But the
She
police
probably messes with the cop. She probably messes with the cop.
No.
She probably talks to the cops.
I'm not speaking to you.
Sorry.
Car was damaged again when?
The next damage was on March 6, 2006.
Okay. With regard to the March incident, you told the police that it could have been any one of 3 people.
Right. Sorry.
I'm already convinced, madam, that you damaged her car in October. Already convinced based upon the police report. You want to be responsible for March too?
No.
Then keep your mouth shut. You told the police with regard to the March incident that it could have been any of 3 people. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Those 3 people are her friends.
I don't care, but you're not responsible for your friends, Ms. Garcia. So you have no proof with regard to March 6th. Is that correct?
That's correct, but then there was another one.
When?
April 10th. And that one, both the taillights were broken off and both the side mirrors were broken off.
Did you have any conversation with the defendant about what happened to your car?
After the January 3rd conversation was the only conversation.
Okay. You want to explain yourself, madam, with regard to the October 23rd, 2005. You want to explain yourself to me?
I didn't do it.
Yes, you did.
No, I didn't.
Then why, madam, when the police got you on the phone, which they did?
Why isn't that? She probably talks to
Just
the
a second.
cop.
Would you get her out of here? Thank you. Get her out of here. Why did you hang up the phone when a policeman identified himself on the phone?
Because when a person says the police are on the phone, you don't know if you could go to jail for something stupid or not. She played on my phone up until she called the cops on purpose, and then that's when I called back and was arguing with her because she told my son when he stayed at his house with my ex-boyfriend that she don't like me and all this other type of stuff. So I called her and was, arguing with her, whatever. And then she was like, you did this to my car, whatever. She had the police right there. So he probably was hanging out at her house because she talks to a lot of people and she goes downtown and she talks to cops and stuff. So he probably was sitting right there, maybe. Maybe that's the case. I'm serious.
Let me see the estimate for the damage to your car on October 23rd,
This is the one
2005.
from the October
Police
23rd.
officers indicated that they heard the recording. Your recording.
I didn't get no police report.
But I got it.
They didn't say nothing to me.
Listen to me. I got it. I'm speaking. You don't have to help me.
She don't really know who did it, nothing to her car. It's so many people. She sleeps around with people she don't know.
Listen, Miss Attitude, you were annoyed with her because she was bad-mouthing you to your... I'm speaking. This is what you just told me. You're shaking your head no.
No.
You're shaking your head no. You just told me you were angry with her because she had bad-mouthed you to your son. That's why you were yelling at her on the phone.
Right.
Because she had bad-mouthed you to your son. That was the conversation that you said was overheard by the police officer.
Right, then
that was... Listen to me. That was after her car was vandalized in October.
Why didn't I call her before and argue with her if I messed up her car or somebody else was messing up her car? Just because I called and argued with her, that don't got nothing to do with me.
Garcia played officers a message on her cell phone left today by Jamie stating, amongst other things, that she was going to damage her vehicle once again. According to the officer, now implicating herself in the previous incident. Ryder was present when Jamie then called back Garcia and heard her repeatedly use profanity when she was addressing Garcia. Ryder attempted to speak with Jamie, however, she hung up on the phone when the Ryder identified himself as a police officer.
Right, I hung up.
She or her friends probably did the damage to your car. Unfortunately, you can't prove it, but you can certainly, you've established to my satisfaction, based on the fact that she was angry with you, based upon the fact that she knows that E. Lincoln was two-timing her. You may or may not have known it, but she knew it.
Yes.
October 23rd, 2005. Was that on or about the same time that you had this discussion with your son?
No, it just was recently when the first time I called her, the time that she taped me.
That was not the first conversation was. I had to have my phone cut off.
No, that wasn't just recently, madam. It wasn't just recently. That was 4 months ago.
I know. That was the last time I talked to her.
How did you get her phone number?
She called my phone playing on it with her phone number. That's how I got it.
So what did you call her back for?
Because she was arguing and playing on my phone, so I cussed her out for playing on my phone.
You also said to her that you were going to damage her car again.
I did not say that.
So the police are lying?
Yeah.
The police are
lying?
lying?
No, I don't think the police are lying. I think maybe it's one of her friends or something.
No. Police were lying?
No, I'm not going to say the police were lying, but...
Good. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $3,619. That's all. Stay away from her car.
Kate Vermeulen. is suing her ex-husband, James Vermeulen, for the unpaid balance on a Saturn he totaled.
Mrs. Vermeulen, this is your former husband, and according to your complaint, you swapped cars with each other because your mother was coming to visit. You needed a larger car. That was last summer. So it's nice to hear that there was at least a reasonable relationship that you had, so that you accommodated your former wife, because you have children together, so that she would use a larger car that was yours. And in any event, you wrecked her car, and there was an outstanding loan on the car. The car was, in fact, totaled, and your former wife feels as if you should be responsible for the difference between what the insurance company paid on the car and the amount of the loan that she's still responsible for, and that amount is $3,634. Is that correct?
Yes.
You have a counterclaim because you say at the time she borrowed your car, she had a minor fender bender, but damaged the bumper of the car.
Correct.
To the tune of about $800, and she should pay that.
Yes.
That's your counterclaim. But let's get to the big ticket item here, Mr. Vermeulen. When did you total her car?
I believe it was August 10th. I was on my way to work.
8/10. And when did you damage the bumper to his car?
Actually, it was so minor that I don't have the exact date.
Okay, but you called and told him about it?
Yes.
Okay. And you have a picture of it, I'm sure.
Yes, I do. I have a picture of the damages that were done to the bumper and actually an imprint.
Okay.
Your Honor, it was September 5th, I do believe, when he ruined my car, when he totaled my vehicle.
Why do you think that it was August 10th, sir?
I thought that was the day.
Well, it wasn't. It was September.
In September?
Yeah, because she would have a police report with regard to it.
I didn't know that there was any police report. I wasn't charged in the accident.
You have a police report?
Yes, I do.
May I see it, please? So it wasn't in August, it was September. That's a big difference.
Sorry.
How do you account for that difference?
I don't know, Your Honor. I was working at that time there. I wasn't really paying attention to the date.
When did you swap cars?
Probably a couple days before her mother arrived. She was
Which was
coming
when?
in for England. Near the end of the summer, which was
in August.
In August.
Now, it's clear that, according to your answer, sir, that the accident was your fault, that your foot got stuck, according to you, on the gas pedal.
Between the gas pedal and the brake, Your Honor.
So it was your fault, right?
I guess if that's the way that you see it, yes, Your Honor.
Well, sir, unless you were driving a very unique car. The gas pedal was put in by the factory. It remained in the same spot. The brake was put in by the factory. It remained in the same spot. You were familiar with the car. You had had it for some time. According to your answer, my foot got stuck between the gas and the brake. You want me to read you what you signed?
No, Your Honor.
So if the foot got stuck between the gas and the brake, it's your fault.
Okay.
Those two things didn't move together.
I was wearing my work boots at the time, which are larger than my way to work, and it is a sports car. The gas pedals are closer together. I drive a truck, Your Honor.
Well, whose fault is that, sir? The car's fault or your fault?
It was an accident.
No, sir. If you're wearing big boots and it's a small car, you take your boots, you put it in the back of the car, and you wear shoes that don't get stuck between the gas pedal and the brake. The car can't accommodate your work boots, right?
Right, Your Honor.
You have to accommodate the car, right?
Correct.
So it's your fault. Now tell me why you believe that you're not responsible for the difference between what the insurance company paid and what your former wife has to pay on the loan.
I believe it's not my fault due to the fact that I wasn't charged with the accident, reckless driving, careless driving. I had a medical report that says that there was no drugs or alcohol involved. I also had her insurance company clear me of all liabilities in relations to her car.
You made babies with him. Just because, sir, you weren't found guilty of a crime, that there was no drugs, alcohol, you weren't speeding, doesn't mean that the accident wasn't your fault. It was your fault. You just said to me I was wearing big work boots. This was a sports car. It doesn't accommodate those kind of shoes. My foot got stuck between the two pedals, and I lost control of the car. And I just tried to explain to you what a normal person of reasonable intelligence would understand, that the car can't accommodate your shoes. Your shoes have to accommodate the car. Now, do you have a picture of the damage you did to the bumper of your car?
Yes, I do, Your Honor.
I'd like to see it. And an estimate on having it fixed.
I have an estimate right here.
Sir, you brought me an estimate from this place for $1,154?
Yes, Your Honor.
Well, would you explain to me why?
I'm only asking to cover the parts, the actual bumper itself, and have it painted there. I'm not asking for taxes, labor, insurance there.
Your Honor?
Originally, I asked her to pay for half because she is still entitled on her vehicle, she's entitled on the insurance, and she's still
Did you have
liable.
insurance on the car?
Yes, I did.
And what was the deductible?
$500, Your Honor.
So that all you're going to pay for is $500.
And then you're going to have a claim with your insurance company, and your insurance will go up. I decided to pay for the claim out of pocket rather than going through my insurance company and having my deductibles raised.
Well, what do you think's going to happen to her insurance, sir? Because you totaled her car. What do you think is going to happen to her insurance company that had to pay out a totaled car?
I'm quite aware that she's going to have a claim with her insurance company, and her deductible will probably go up as well as her insurance payments.
So you mean you want me to give you a benefit and not her?
I'm not asking for special treatment.
Yes, you are, sir. What you're saying is I decided that I didn't want to go through my insurance. So I decided to pay for it myself. And therefore, instead of just paying for the deductible, which I believe should be responsible for paying, if you in fact fix the car, then what you're saying is I want her to pay the additional amount, which is $822, which is the cost of the bumper, which is what you're suing for. Because if I went through the insurance, my insurance premiums would go up. That's
Correct.
what you're saying to me.
Yes.
But her insurance premiums are going to go up substantially more than yours, sir, because they had to pay out on a new car, right?
Correct, Your Honor.
Say nothing. You had a $500 deductible. You had to pay out $3,634. From that, I'm deducting $500. I'm awarding you on your claim $3,100. Do you understand?
Yes, Your Honor.
Now I want to see where you fixed the car. Do you have a bill for fixing the car?
That was a quote there. I've had the work done since
Where?
I paid for the parts.
Show me.
I don't have that with me, Your Honor.
Well, why did you bring me this, sir?
That is a quote of what it would cost at a body shop to get it done. What I paid for out of pocket was the parts and the paint.
Why, sir, wouldn't you bring me the actual cost of what it cost to fix the car?
I didn't have the bills at the time. It was short notice. I didn't care at the time, Your Honor. I didn't really save the bills there. I didn't plan on coming to court. I didn't think I was going to be in court today.
When did you get this?
When did I got that?
Yes.
3 days before I knew I was going to be in court.
Well, instead of put your hand down. Instead of getting this estimate for work that was never going to be done because according to you already did the work, right?
Correct.
So this is bogus.
It's not bogus.
This is bogus.
Quote.
So instead of wasting the time to take the car in to see what it would be to fix the car, which according to you already fixed, so it would be difficult for them to give you an estimate on fixing a car that was already fixed because you said you fixed it. Why didn't you, instead of getting this estimate, go back to the place where you bought the parts and say, I lost a copy of the bill. Can I please have a copy of the bill for the parts?
I could ask for the original copy. I could send them to you.
Why did you waste time getting this instead of getting the receipts for the actual work?
I have no answer for that, Your Honor.
Well, then you're not getting a thing. Strike it. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $3,634. Your counterclaim was dismissed. You did a lot of fast talking, sir. Did not impress me. That's all. Step out. The defendant was your boyfriend. He became pregnant sometime in 2005.
Yes.
You broke up with the defendant and you were pregnant at the time.
Yes.
It is your claim that he assaulted you, and as a result of that assault, your baby was born prematurely and died. You want the defendant to pay for half of the baby's funeral expenses and damages for the assault.
Yes.
Mr. Jones says that you were the one who assaulted him, as a matter of fact, on the day that you broke up, that he never agreed to pay for the child's funeral expenses. As a matter of fact, he wasn't even positive that the child was his and told you that he had wanted a blood test before he assumed responsibility of the baby. That's your defense?
Yes, it is.
Okay. When did you become pregnant, Miss Johnson?
I found out I was pregnant July 22nd.
Of what year?
2005.
And were you living with Mr. Jones at the time?
Robert was staying with me along with his son because he was having arguments with his mother.
Did you move in with her in July or before that time?
I'll be staying over, you know.
You were staying over?
Yeah.
Okay. And when did you break up?
November 20th as a result of the assault.
Just listen to me. Had he slept at the house the night before?
Yes.
And the night before that?
Yes.
So tell me what happened on November the 20th.
November the 20th, I received a phone call from Rob at about 3 o'clock in the morning.
Well, then he hadn't been at your house 3 o'clock in the morning.
No, he was at the bars. He would frequently go to the bars and then come over to my house afterwards. And he had called me at 3 o'clock in the morning stating that he was going to come over. I ran downstairs and unlocked the door like I would usually do, and he didn't come in. So after a while, I looked out my window and saw that the car was parked and the headlights were on and the car was still running. So I laid there for a couple more minutes and then got dressed. And when I walked outside, I saw that Rob was passed out in the driver's seat. So I crawled into the passenger seat and woke him up and asked him, you know, what he was doing and why he hadn't come in the house, and he told me that he didn't know. So we were trying to get the headlights of the vehicle to turn off. They wouldn't turn off. So I suggested that we just unplug the battery. I was 5 months pregnant. I didn't want to be fighting with him. I would much rather just go to bed. He wanted me to, you know, be with him that night, and he wanted to be around me. So I stated, you know, let's just unplug the battery. We couldn't figure out the lights. So he started to proceed to back out of my driveway. I told him that he was drunk, that I didn't want to go anywhere with him. And he wasn't listening to me, so I leaned over and smacked him in the face. I went like this to the front of his face. He then looked at me, told me to do that again, and I looked at him and said, "What did you mean?" And the next thing I knew, he punched me in my face.
So first you punched him and then he punched you?
Yeah, I didn't punch him.
Just a second. So first you punched him.
Yes.
And then he punched you.
Yes.
Okay, now I got it.
But the only reason I hit him is because he wasn't listening to me and he wouldn't stop the vehicle.
I got you.
So then my nose...
He wasn't listening to you.
Yes.
Why don't you just take the keys out of the ignition?
I didn't think of that.
Shouldn't have gotten in the car in the first place.
I shouldn't have told him to come over that evening.
That's also correct.
Knowing that he was drunk.
That is also correct.
Yes.
Okay,
I agree.
keep going.
I realized that my nose was bleeding very, very badly. So I opened the car door and I half jumped out of the car, and he like kind of gave me a little push along with it because he was laughing at the time. And I ran in the house and proceeded to call my mother first. And
so you weren't too far from where the house was?
No, I live on the second house at the corner of the block, and we were at the corner of the block.
Keep going.
I called my brother and he took me to the emergency room.
And what did they do for you there?
I first saw a police officer, and they went to arrest Rob.
That doesn't answer my question. What did they do for you in the emergency room?
At the emergency room, they took x-rays of my face, and I was having a sharp pain that was shooting from my back to my stomach. So then I was told that I had to go up to the maternity floor for monitoring on the baby.
And that was in November?
Yes.
And when was the baby born?
The baby was born in February.
February what?
7th.
How much did she weigh?
She weighed 2 pounds, 2 ounces.
And when did she pass away?
The 11th.
Between November 20th and February 7th, did you see the defendant?
I saw him at the court dates.
Other than that?
No, because there was a court order for him to not be within 1,000 feet of me.
Now, when did you have this conversation with him with regard to paying for the baby's funeral expenses?
Okay, the first conversation I had with Robert was when he called me in late June after Father's Day. And I said, well, I kind of need money, you know, we should be paying for her gravestone, and I have funeral expenses that I couldn't get a grant from the state from everything. And he told me that he would give me $200 in August, and that him and his mother could save that together. I then called him on August 24th, and he told me he didn't have the money. So I said that I would pay the rest of it and that he could just pay me back. And he proceeded to say that that was fine. The next time I spoke to Robert was on September 17th when he called me and asked me if I wanted to go fishing with him with him. So I said, yeah, that I would go fishing because I wanted to speak to him about, the money.
Don't tell me why. You agreed to go fishing with him?
Yes. I knew
Is this
that.
the first time you had seen him other than the courthouse? Listen to me.
No.
Other than the court proceeding, is this the first time you saw him since November?
Other than court and then our daughter's birth, no.
Well, you didn't tell me about the daughter's birth.
My sister called him the morning that I was supposed to have a cesarean section. I was diagnosed with preeclampsia, which is high blood pressure, and then becomes toxic and it affects the baby's heart rate. And the first time I had high blood pressure was December 20th, and it proceeded to get worse throughout the pregnancy due to stress-related causes.
Don't tell me what it was due to, madam, unless you're a physician. Are you a physician?
No.
Good. Go ahead.
My sister called him the morning that I was supposed to have the cesarean section. He showed up shortly after our daughter was born, and I asked him if it would be okay with him to go up with her to the hospital up in the cities, because we live in Mankato, and she was being airlifted to Minneapolis. He said that he would go and be with her because they didn't expect her to live past the night. The next day, I was released from the hospital, and the following morning, Robert came down from the cities and took us up to the cities where the hospital was because we weren't aware of where it was.
What do you mean he took you? How did he take you?
We followed him.
What do you mean you followed him?
My mother and sister and I followed him in a different vehicle. Him and his mother drove in their own vehicle. So when we got to the cities, he went to a basketball tournament and left us with my daughter so I could spend time with her. And then later on that evening, he came back to the hospital when I was at the hotel the following day.
I'm asking you when you spent time with him.
I didn't spend...
You didn't see him at the hospital?
No, he left as soon as he got us there. We got up to the room.
You didn't see him in the hospital is my question.
No, yes, I seen him at the hospital.
How many times did you see him in the hospital?
Just that first day.
So the baby died in February.
Yes.
Between February and September 17th, when he called to go fishing, did you see him?
On occasion, out and about, you know, at like local stores, yes.
Other than seeing him at local stores, did you have a cup of coffee with him? Did you have a sandwich with him? Did you go out to a movie with him?
No.
Is that true, sir?
It's true.
So what prompted you to call her up to go fishing on September 17th?
Actually, she called me, and I just had mentioned we were going fishing. And if she, you know, if she wanted to come, you know, it was a beautiful day out. So she said, sure. So went fishing, took her home, that was it.
Go ahead. So continue with your story, madam. Here we are.
We went fishing.
We are now September 17th fishing, and he hasn't given you any money.
And when we went fishing, Robert and I took his mother to Cub Foods so that she could get milk for the house before he dropped me off at my apartment, which is about 3 blocks away from Cub Foods, which is a local grocery store.
Just keep going, please. I don't need a map of the town. Keep moving.
So after we dropped his mother off at Cub Foods, it was him and I in the vehicle, and I brought up the money, and he told me that he had bills himself that he needed, and I proceeded to leave the vehicle. And then at the powwow, I saw him and brought up the money again, and that's actually
So you
why
weren't afraid of him?
No. Not when he's not drinking.
No, you weren't afraid of him.
No, I'm not scared of him unless...
Why in the world, some 2 years later, are you suing him now for assault?
I just think that he owes me the money. I was emotionally distraught from the loss of my daughter.
I want to know why you didn't sue him before you went fishing with him.
I didn't want to go through the court proceedings.
Well, what prompted you now to go through a court proceeding to sue him for a punch that happened 2 years ago?
The fact that he won't pay for our daughter's funeral expenses.
Did he ever tell you that he wasn't sure that the baby was his?
No, he never told me that. And if he didn't think that the baby was his, why would he go up to the cities and sit with her?
I don't know. I'm going to find out. Tell me what happened on November 20th, Mr. Jones.
Okay, I had broken up with her earlier that day because she was real emotional, and she was kind of abusive towards me. You know, she would hit me in my chest or whatever. Kind of, she did it like she knew because I wouldn't hit her, and she knew that, you know, I'm not a violent person. I never hit a female ever in my life, and I broke up with her earlier that day.
Well, tell me about breaking up with her earlier that day.
I was actually going to play ball with my friends, which I always did, and she kind of like got emotional and started, you know, kind of like crying.
No,
she cried a lot.
Kind of like, if you remembered what she said, if you remember as closely to what happened, please, I would
Well, we
like
weren't
to...
getting along before this either, so on that day, I told her that it was over.
Is that right, madam?
No.
Before he went out to the bar that night, because clearly you had to unlock the door because you would lock the door, so clearly he wasn't living with you at that moment. Did he discuss with you earlier in the day on November 20th that he was not happy with the relationship?
No, he had never once tried to or attempted to tell me that he was not happy in our relationship.
Okay, keep going.
Okay, and so I called her and told her that I was going to come get my things.
What time?
This was at like about 2:30.
In the morning?
In the morning.
You crazy? Why would you call at 2:30 in the morning to say you were getting your things?
The bar was like right by her place.
So you had been in the bar, Mr. Jones?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I wasn't all like how she made it out to be.
I don't care whether you're all that. This is not an appropriate thing to do.
Yep,
to go 2:30 in the morning, to go while you're slightly inebriated, to get behind the wheel of a car and go anywhere to settle anything.
Yep.
You're supposed to wait till the morning.
Okay, so I went and grabbed my, tried to grab my things. I told her that, I just came to get my things and that it was over, and she kind of got mad because she didn't want to never break it off anyways. And prior to this, she had injured herself twice at work to get my attention. She would, oh, I'm at the emergency room, come down. And she, according to her, was in a car accident that rolled or whatever. This is all her stories, and I never had proof of anything, so.
How many times did you go to the emergency room with her prior to November 20th?
Just the day this kid was born. But after she had gotten pregnant, she told me that, like, just like weeks after I found out, she said that we got into an argument. She said she's early enough in her pregnancy where she can say somebody else is the father. And I said, well, how do I know that's not what you're doing to me? And I tried going to her first doctor's appointment, and she left me sitting out in the lobby.
Okay, got it. Did you ever tell her that you and your mother could save up $200 until August?
Yes, I did.
And that you would give her $200?
Yeah, I said that basically so she would just,
I don't care why you said it.
Yeah.
Did you tell her that?
Yes, I did.
Now, let's get back to November 20th. You said you were coming to pick up your things 2:30 in the morning.
Yep.
2:30 in the morning you got there, and?
She opened the door, and she didn't want me in. And I wasn't going to barge in because that's not how I am.
Fine, so?
So she basically hit me in my eye because I told her I wanted my things, and it was over. And she hit me in my eye, closed the door, looked out the window, and I said, that's fine. That's the last time you'll ever hit me. And I walked all, her sister actually dropped him off at my work.
Is what you're telling me that she never got into your car?
She never did.
All right, I'd like to see the police report, please.
Yes, and I have pictures.
I'd like to see the police report, please.
If I could say something, too, there was never even a police weren't even there.
Sir, you pled guilty to fifth-degree assault, according to the plaintiff.
Yeah, I did.
Okay, so? All right, so you told the police that he doesn't live with you. That's what you told the police.
I told the police that he was staying at his mother's house.
You told the police that you do not live together and that he stays on and off, but he lives with his mother. Who are you?
Robert Armando's mother.
Stand up, please. Your last name is?
Jones.
Miss Jones, you told the police when they came to your house on November the 20th to go downstairs and get your son. Is that right?
Right.
You told him to go downstairs and get your son because he came home drunk.
Right.
And he was passed out on the couch.
Right.
Right. And you, sir, when you were questioned by the police, you were so drunk that you denied even being over at your girlfriend's house.
Yeah, well, yeah.
You know, Mr. Jones, there is absolutely no indication here, nor, I assume, do you have any medical testimony that would indicate a correlation between your baby's death 2 months after you got this black eye, because that's what it was, and the baby's illness.
No.
No. So what you're suing him for is for the simple assault of giving you a black eye and the $200 he promised you for the baby's headstone. He's not responsible with regard to any of the other baby's expenses because there is no indication that this is in fact his child. In order to do that, you either have to be married, which you are not, or you have to have a blood test, which would establish that he's the father. Then he would be responsible for half of any unrecovered expenses for the child. Since you don't have that, the only thing that you have to sue him on is his agreement that he would pay you $200 towards the child's headstone, which was really gratuitous, but he promised he would. You relied on that. That you have to pay, sir. Do you understand?
Yes, I do.
Since there is no correlation between the injury to your eye and what subsequently happened to the baby, I have to examine the circumstances surrounding what happened on that day. There's no question in my mind that he was drunk, that he has no recollection of what happened that day, that he's making it up as he's going along, because he even denied to the police that he was there that day. Even your mother was disgusted with you, sir. Is that a fair statement, Miss Jones?
Right.
Okay. Now, you pled guilty to assaulting her, sir.
Yes, I did.
And you received probation?
Nope, I just got a $500 fine.
No, he was placed on probation for 1 year.
Sir, you better start remembering things that happened to you.
I never was. I was supposed to get a probation officer. I never did.
I don't care whether you were supposed to, whether they never followed through and gave you a probation officer. Maybe you forgot. But if you were supposed to get a probation officer, it wasn't because they were giving you a probation officer for your birthday. They were giving you a probation officer because you were on probation. You have to learn, Mr. Jones, that there are consequences. However, Ms. Johnson, you don't get any awards for being the brightest bulb in the pack. When you're 5 months pregnant and your boyfriend calls 3 o'clock in the morning and says, I'm at a bar and I'm coming over, you lock your door and you keep it closed. You don't go outside to try to figure out how to get the lights off and disconnect his battery.
Yeah.
And you don't punch him in the face. But he started the problem by coming over there in the first place, which was really very stupid. And that, Mr. Jones, is going to cost you $500. So I'm issuing a judgment in the amount of $700, $200 for the baby's headstone and $500 for this 2-year-old assault. Thank you very much. That's all. Are in parking.
Hello, Wally, for unauthorized charges on his credit card. Isela says it's her credit card also.
Order. All rise. Yeah, this is case number 478 on the calendar in the matter of Germani versus Wally. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated, ma'am. Have a seat, please.
Mr. Germani, you and the defendant were married. You are now divorced. How long were you married?
5 years.
Do you have children together?
Yes, ma'am.
How many children?
2.
Who do the children live with?
They live with me.
According to your complaint, after the divorce, your wife ran up a bill on your American Express card.
Yes, ma'am.
And then she went into what had been a joint account of yours.
It's actually what it was a home equity account.
And she withdrew $2,000
That's
from
correct.
that home equity, and there was $3,000 in the reserve fund that you could have drawn from.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. You don't deny that you ran up this bill on American Express?
No, I don't deny that I ran it up.
Okay.
I don't believe I owe him anything.
Okay. We'll get to it in a second.
Okay.
When were you divorced? What was the date of the divorce?
July 17th, 2000.
And when was the first charge on the American Express card?
November.
November 2000.
November 2000.
So it was clearly after the divorce?
Yes.
Okay. And how much did you charge on the American Express card?
$1,000.
How much?
$1,344.79.
Explain to me why you don't owe him that money.
Well, first of all, because I thought this was my account, he gave me the card in an envelope, and also he told me after I did it, he told me, first of all, he said he was going to press charges. Then, a couple of days later, he called me back and said, don't worry about it. I'm not going to press any charges.
Ms. Wally, you thought this was your account that you were charging things on that you wanted and that you planned to pay for.
Yes.
Is that right?
Right.
So why don't you pay for them?
Because he said, don't worry about it.
No, he didn't. He said,
Yes,
don't worry,
he
I'm
did.
not going to press charges.
He
There's a
said,
difference.
don't worry about it. I told him, I'll make the payments. He says, how much do you plan on paying? I said, I don't know, $30, $40 a week, a month.
Get out of here. You don't pay American Express that way, madam. You have to pay them the balance in full. All right, forget that. You owe $1,344.79. I don't know where your head is. Now, you withdrew $2,000 from a home equity line of credit.
It's also my account. I have every right to it. If it's
Who said so?
Who said so?
You have a
my
judge...
credit report.
No
the bank.
way, Miss Wally. Get your head together. You are divorced from him. You cannot obligate him for anything anymore. When you have a home equity line of credit, you have to pay that back. Who's supposed to pay it back? You or him?
I told him I was going to make payments on it because I needed a car to be able to go see my kids because they told me they were not a taxi service and that I should get a car in order to pay, in order to be able to see my kids. So I needed a car right away so I can go see my kids whenever I felt like it, which even after that, I wasn't able to go see my kids.
Miss Wally, Miss Wally, hey, do you pay child support?
No.
Why not?
We have joint custody with the children living primarily with the father, and no custody is to be paid as long as the custody remains joint. And the only reason why the custody is joint, the only reason why the custody is joint was because I was afraid to fight him against this because he was always telling me, all you are is a poor Mexican wetback without an education, and the judge is not going to listen to you.
Miss Wally, listen to me. You don't sound like you're a victim to me. You sound very smart. If you accessed a home equity line of credit and took out money, and if you spent $1,300.44 on things. By the way, what did you buy on American Express?
If I may?
Yeah, let me see.
I have
I'm just curious if you were in such dire need to have a car.
these are actual,
Why
this
would you
was way
spend...
before I needed
the
to
actual
have a
tickets
car.
that were signed.
Because he had let me use his car for a while until Leanne moved in and they needed the car to trade it in for a Durango.
Dresses. So you bought yourself clothes. Clarence, you bought makeup and stuff. Eyewear and eye exams. Was that for you?
Yes, it was.
Who'd you buy shoes for?
He's wearing them.
He's wearing them.
Mm-hmm.
You bought men's shoes for your former husband?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Actually, the shoes I'm wearing, I bought myself.
Did she buy you a pair of shoes?
I received shoes in Christmas as a Christmas present for my children of December of 2000.
Okay. So, Miss Wally, once you are divorced, all of your financial obligations to the other are concluded. You cannot obligate him to do anything. If you used his American Express card and expected him to pay the bill, you are mistaken.
I didn't expect him to pay the
bill.
bill.
Then you have to pay the bill.
I expected to pay the bill myself.
Good, then you pay the bill. And as far as
the only thing is, then he told me, don't worry about it. Don't worry about the payments or anything.
No, Miss Wally, you're not paying attention. If you said to him, I'll pay the American Express account $20 or $30 a month, he can't say to you that's okay, because American Express does not take their money at $20 or $30 a month. They're not a Visa or a MasterCard where you can pay so much and you owe them for the rest of your life. So you owe him this money. And if you said to him, if you gave him an alternative, that alternative was unsatisfactory because his credit would be in the toilet. As far as the home equity is concerned, the home equity is merely a line of credit. That is not money in the bank in a joint account. It's money that has to be returned. And just because the line of credit may have been taken out at a time when you were together doesn't mean that you are able to take advances on that money and expect him to pay for it.
I didn't expect him to pay for it.
So good. So what are we doing here? You owe him.
He's the one that brought me here.
Never received any money.
Because you told me it was okay. You told me.
Oh, please, Mr. Germani, Mr. Germani, Mr. Germani, listen to me very carefully,
Yes,
sir.
ma'am.
I don't know whether she just doesn't get it or whether she just doesn't get it.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Mark Germani says ex-wife Isela Wally made charges on his credit card after their divorce. Isela says she had every right to use it.
She owes you $3,344.79.
I agree.
That's what she owes you. And if she doesn't get it, she doesn't get it. I would suggest you do the smart thing. If you haven't closed out all your accounts by now, publish notices. I suggest that you do that. She is angry. She will continue to be angry. I have no idea if she's working, why she's not paying child support if you have primary custody of the children.
We have joint
she should
custody.
Be. No.
Yes.
You may have joint legal custody, madam, but if primary physical custody resides in one parent, the other parent pays child support. That's it, and I don't care whether you wear a dress or a skirt or you wear pants. The other parent pays child support. You're lucky you're not paying child support. Don't take further advantage of the situation. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
The only reason why we're here is because Leanne is the one who wanted to proceed with this.
Actually, the woman in my life has opened my eyes to the fact that this will continue to happen unless I do something about it.
I shouldn't have had to pay this money because he told me not to worry about it.
Get a lawyer when you get divorced.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Castile versus Garcia. Step forward, please.
24-year-old cook Stephanie Castile is suing her former roommate, 23-year-old nursing assistant Angie Garcia, for an assault and for the return of property. Angie is countersuing for unpaid rent, utility bills, and damage to her property.
Miss Castile, is this your daughter?
Yes, ma'am.
She necessary to be here today?
She witnessed the defendant attacking me.
Would you take her outside, please?
Sure.
Thank you. Come on. All right, Miss Castile, according to your complaint, you moved in with your child to the defendant's home. The defendant also had children. You lived there for a while, and there came a time, an evening, when she was supposed to babysit. You wanted to go out. You went to sleep. She went out. You missed your party. There was an altercation when she came home, and you claim she attacked you and assaulted you.
Yes, ma'am.
In addition, you say that she has some property that belongs to you from a car of yours that was repossessed.
Mm-hmm.
Ms. Garcia says that you were the aggressor in this altercation that took place over the babysitting, that she doesn't have any of your property, and she is counterclaiming for back rent, for damage that you allegedly did to her property, and for things that you took from her home when you left.
Yes.
When did you move in with her, Ms. Castile?
It was in January of 2000.
What was the rent arrangement that you had?
The rent arrangement was to split the house payment, and we each had to pay $330.
And split other household expenses?
Utilities, yes.
Now tell me about this assault. When did it take place?
On May 30th of 2001.
What was the babysitting arrangement?
I was going out that night. She wasn't going to babysit for me, but I had plans to go to a live boxing match. And
she was not going to babysit for you?
No, I had another babysitter arranged. I went to lay down and take a nap. When I woke up, she was gone, and her kids were there.
What time did she come home?
2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning.
And what happened when she came home?
I asked her why she left her children there while I was sleeping. She was really drunk and really defensive and saying if I didn't like it, oh well, too bad. Next thing I knew, she was on top of me, choking me. She had her knees up over my arms. And she grabbed my hair, was punching me in the face. I have some pictures.
I'd like to see the pictures, please.
When I tried to push her off me, she bit my thumb, which the thumb picture didn't turn out. And she also bit my back.
Okay, what happened next?
She couldn't find the phone, so she ran to the neighbor's house to call 911 or have them call it. Finally, the police came, and I got the police report.
I see it, please.
But at the time, the police didn't take a police report. They didn't even take our names. So the next morning, I went to the police station, and that's when I got that police report. And I also had to make a report against the police for, I guess, not taking a report because they didn't even take our names. So because I had to move out, I had to use my car payment money to move out. And the bank came to get the car, and a letter was sent to our address that was stating where my belongings that were inside the car were going to be mailed. And the belongings were mailed to my boss's house, and she showed up on that day. And
How do you know that?
He told me that.
Where is he?
He wouldn't come.
You can't tell me what he said, because that's hearsay. Now tell me your version, Ms. Garcia, about the events of May 30th.
We were both supposed to go out together, and I had a sitter for our children. Well, she called and said that she couldn't do it anymore. So she was sleeping on the couch, taking a little nap.
Who called and said they couldn't do it anymore?
My babysitter, my friend Krista. She was going to babysit for both of our children. And she called and said she couldn't do it. I still wanted to go out. As a parent, she didn't want to go. So I put my children and hers to bed, and I went out. I got a call on my cell phone.
Where did you go?
I went to the bar. I got a call on my cell phone after the bar, about 1. And
about 1 o'clock in the morning?
And she had left a message saying, I don't appreciate you leaving me with your kids, just going off on this message. So I went home. And she was mad about it, freaking out. What? You know, you knew I wanted to go out too, blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, well, I'm sorry, next time you can go out. Well, she went upstairs. She was still rambling upstairs. Well, you need to pay me for babysitting your kids and blah, blah, blah. It's like, whatever.
Just a minute, so she went upstairs?
She went upstairs, yes.
And where did you go?
And I was downstairs, and she was yelling at me, you need to pay me for babysitting your kids. And I went upstairs, and I said, what are you...
So then you went upstairs?
I went upstairs, yes. And I said, what are you talking about? I babysit your kid all the time, you know? We started fighting. We got on the bed. She kicked me. I flipped over the bed.
But you said, no, we passed that over. She went into her room.
No, we started fighting in the hall. And it led right, the door was right here. It's just a little
What do you mean
hall.
you started fighting? How did that start?
She's like right in my face, you know, yelling at me for going out. And I had apologized several times already, you know, saying, fine, you can go out next time. I'll watch your kid. I said, it's not like you haven't left me.
I heard that already.
Yes, so then we started fighting.
Started fighting is a conclusion. So far, we're just at the verbal end of it, Ms. Garcia.
Like, okay, we're face to face, yelling at each other. Then pushing starts, okay? So then you start
who started the pushing?
I'm not sure. Maybe me, maybe her, maybe both. I had been drinking, but she was not nice like she's trying to say she was.
I don't think she was nice at all. But I think that you had been out and you had been drinking.
Yeah. And she was mad because she didn't go with me.
Okay, so you pushed her.
So we started fighting, yes.
No, you pushed her.
No, we were face to face, and I'm not saying I pushed her first because I don't know who pushed who first.
She says that you struck her first.
No, I didn't. No.
How do you know that if you don't remember?
Well.
What happened next?
And then after the fight, the police were called. They said, well, you'll both go to jail. Okay, so we didn't want to press charges. So we both stayed in the house together that night. So I woke up the next morning, and she had majority of her things on the porch. Well, I noticed she was taking my things also. I said, no, get out. You're not going to be taking my things too. So I locked her out. So then she called the police again, and then they came over and assisted or stood there with us while she got the rest of her things.
But you claimed that sometime later she came back and she took things that belonged to you, and she also vandalized your property. When was that?
I went out of town, and I got a call from my husband saying that the house, the door was wide open, it had been broken into. The neighbors, I talked to my neighbors, they said...
You can't tell me what anybody said to you,
Well,
Ms.
I have the police report right here.
I'll take a look at the police report.
The witness said that he's seen her.
I'll take a look at the police report. So you advised the police that an unknown person had broken into your house?
Yes, I did.
Okay. I want to hear what money you say she owes you for rent.
Okay. $560 Then
For what months?
May and June.
You don't get any money for June. Did you pay May's rent?
Yes, I did.
How much did you pay
Because I
in
moved
May?
out of the last day of May.
How much did you pay in May?
$260 probably. I don't know. I don't have a receipt. I always just, she'd tell me what we owed and I'd give it to her and she'd
I gave
And that
her
was
a
the
check.
first of the month that you paid rent.
I had given her my $280, it was, and she was supposed to pay it. She never paid it and kept my $280, so therefore I had to come up with another $560.
Do you have proof that you gave her this money?
No, I don't.
All right. Listen, then the only thing I'm entertaining here,
That's fine.
quite frankly,
Okay,
is,
then I
is
have
this assault.
I have my insurance paper, which I
Insurance
think
for
is
what?
when she robbed me, when she broke into my house.
But you have no proof that you did it.
Okay,
Listen
that's
to me.
fine.
You have a police report where they say they spoke to a neighbor.
Yes, that seen her entering the house.
That said that they
weekend
saw
I was
her
gone.
and a friend enter the house. That is not sufficient proof of a burglary and a theft and a vandalism. Do you understand?
Yes.
Period, end of discussion, and I'm certain that they didn't arrest her for this. Is that right?
No, they didn't.
Because they didn't have proof. Now, you have no proof for the police to arrest. You certainly don't have any proof for court.
I also have a gas bill where we were behind on the gas.
That was
As of
also
when?
behind when I moved in.
No,
What?
it wasn't.
That was also behind when
You
I
moved in 2000.
Yeah. And that's
You moved in
we
for
were not
January
behind.
of 2000.
Right. Yeah,
The
and
bill
I
was like
wasn't.
$600 a month to heat the house.
So how much were you behind?
$424.71 and $332.62.
Couldn't add these up? What else?
I also have a protection order on her because after I moved out of Omaha, I moved in with my brother. She came down there and just walked into our apartment. This was 9 months ago, and she's nonstop.
Well, she better stop.
Obviously won't
She
leave me
better
alone.
stop. However, Miss Garcia, you assaulted her.
I know.
You'd had a little too much to drink. You followed her upstairs, and you were the aggressor, and that's unacceptable. So forget your $378. That's going to be absorbed in the judgment that I'm entering for the plaintiff. What's the value of the property that you say was taken? $1,800? Well, I'm going to deduct that from the $2,300 you're suing for. So that means that you are seeking $500 for this assault.
Right.
Well, you are entitled to that. But from that, I'm going to deduct $378 because that's what you owe for the utilities for the time that you did live there prior to May.
I paid on them.
Well, let me see.
I gave you the electric that I paid off before I left, too. That was
Let me see.
$142.
Let me see. $142 you paid?
Yes, ma'am. The deposit was $200 and something. They paid the bill, and then they sent me what was left over.
All right. I'm giving you $500 for the assault. That's what you were suing for. From that, I am adding and subtracting these utilities and some money for the utilities that you paid. That leaves you a balance of $264 on your claim of $500, and that's what I'm awarding you. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $264. Counterclaim is dismissed. You have no proof.
Is suing her ex-boyfriend, 23-year-old grad student Surya Gunasekara, for a series of unpaid loans. Surya says the money in question was a gift.
Yana, this is number 39 on the calendar, the matter of Pugach versus Gunasekara. Really. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Gentlemen, have a seat.
Ms. Pugach, what's your first name?
Sandra.
Mr. Gunasekara, your first name?
Surya.
How long had the two of you been dating?
We dated for about 2.5 years.
Did you live together?
No.
But it is your claim that while you were dating, you made a series of loans to him.
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Gunasekara says there were no loans, just the give and take of a normal dating relationship, and he acknowledges that you laid out some money for him. He said that that's part of the dating relationship. Is that right, sir?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. When did you start dating?
We started dating in October of 2002.
And when was the first loan that you made to him?
In July of 2004.
What was it for?
It was for a trip. We went on a couple of trips after he got back from Europe after he graduated from college. And the first trip we made was with his parents to Canada. And when we would go out, I would pay. And he would always say, oh, when we get back and I get a job, I'll pay you back. And then we went to my hometown in Georgia, and I paid for the hotel, and we went out to dinner, and he said that he would pay for half of it when we got back, and he got a job.
Well, did he ever get a job?
No.
Huh?
No, Your Honor.
He never got a job?
Not until recently.
What's next?
In August, I went to Barcelona to study abroad for the semester, and I thought he was going to stay home and get a job so he could finally get the money to pay me back. And I would question him on if he's been applying to jobs. He would say he would go into interviews, so I figured he was on a line to get a job eventually, hopefully sooner than later.
Go ahead, Sandra. I'm listening for the rest of the loans.
Okay, so then he moved to Europe, and he eventually came to Barcelona, and I paid for his rent while he lived there, and I paid for his food, and anywhere we would go out, I would pay. And every time I would give him money, he would say, "Don't worry, you know, when we get back, I'll get a job. I promise I'll pay you back."
Keep going.
Then we finally came back to the States, and he was going to interviews quite often. He would say he got a job offer, but then wouldn't take it.
Keep going with the loans, my dear.
So in March of 2005, we took a trip to Las Vegas, and I paid for everything while we were there. And then I really just got tired of him not paying me back. We got back home.
You say in your complaint that he wanted $500 to gamble with.
Yes.
And you gave it to him.
I did.
Who are these two gentlemen over here?
This is my roommate, Danny McGee, and he was in Vegas with us. And then this is my friend, Devin, and he is a mutual friend of ours. He used to hang out with us. He would see me giving Surya money all the time and him promising to pay me back.
Well, I want to hear about the promise to pay you back. Raise your hand, please.
Sorry, my
Name?
name's Danny. Danny McGee. I'm roommates with Sandy, and I went on a trip to Vegas with both of them. And there's been times in the past where she would give him money to gamble with the agreement that if he lost, she would take the loss, and if he won, that they'd split the winnings. And this trip to Vegas, she was hesitant to go because he didn't have any money. And we got out there, and I saw her $200 or $300 that he borrowed from her. And she said specifically at the time, "I'm going to give you this money, and if you lose, you owe it to me." And he agreed and actually lost all the money. And since then, I know he's had 2 jobs and has made no effort to pay her back whatsoever.
You have anything to add to this case?
Yeah, I do, actually. Should I stand up?
Yes, you should.
Okay. Well,
Your name?
my name is Devin Stinson, and I've called him before in the past, and I've said, "Hey, let's go get some food or something." And he'd say, "Well, you got to call Sandy because I don't have any money." And then I'd call Sandy, and we'd all go out, and then what would wind up happening is he would order, and then after everything was over, he would say, "Well, I don't have any money," and he'd just expect it to be paid for.
Thank you.
Okay.
Ball's in your court.
Well, first off, let me say that the only reason I went to Europe was because I had a job. I had an internship with a software company, and I had that for a while, and it didn't end up working out. My plane ticket wasn't for 6 weeks later, so Sandy and I both agreed that it would be good to spend that 6 weeks together, because I was actually living in Switzerland at the time. And so I came down to Barcelona, and I did have some income through a rental property of mine. So I was making some type of money.
Surya, how old are you?
23.
Am I correct? According to your answer, you're in law school now?
No, not till August.
Where?
Thomas Jefferson or the University of Denver. I haven't chosen one.
What college did you graduate from?
University of Colorado.
And you?
I'm still in school at the University of Colorado.
Where do you get all this money from, Sandra?
I have 2 jobs that I work.
What 2 jobs do you work?
I am the assistant manager at a bowling alley at the school, and I work for the housing department at the university.
Who's paying your tuition?
My parents are.
Did they like him?
Sometimes. Most of the time.
Well, I'm sure he can be charming.
You sure can.
When the first time you went out for dinner with him, and he said, "I'm sorry, I left my wallet in my other car. I left my wallet in Switzerland." That should have been a clue. Sounds to me, based upon what this young man has testified to, that this was sort of a regular occurrence. You would go out for a meal, he would eat, and you would pay. Right?
Yes, ma'am.
Should have known better, Sandra. Who is this, by the way?
This is Ryan Watson. He's my roommate.
Does he have anything to contribute to this case?
Yeah. I'll let him explain.
I witnessed on many occasions Surya doing favors for Sandy, tutoring her and cleaning and making her dinner and things like that. And on some of those occasions, she would ask Surya to help her do those things, and Surya would say, no, not right now, I'm busy. But then she would say, Surya, you owe me so much money, using that against him, and he would end up doing that. So in both our opinions...
So you mean he was bartering domestic chores
right.
for the money he owed her?
Right.
And educational, Your Honor.
Syria, do you think that Sandra tutored you in some things?
As far as school?
Anything!
It's quite possible.
She didn't charge you for it, did she?
Emotionally, she charged me.
How did she... Shh, come on, folks. Come on, behave. Let's behave. How did she charge you emotionally?
I had to put up with so much ridiculous nonsense.
Surya, that you don't have to put up with it. I don't want to hear it. You weren't tethered to a radiator, were you?
In a metaphorical sense.
No metaphorical sense. No metaphorical
Literally,
sense.
no.
You were in Switzerland. She was in Barcelona. Nobody got a magnet and attached it to you in Switzerland. You came down there by your
own recognizance.
You're not in law school yet. Let's stick to the English you understand, sir.
Okay.
You think you took advantage of her?
I don't.
You just think that she understood what she was getting herself into. She had the money at the time. You did not.
Right.
And she wanted to travel to Vegas. You said, I'll go with you, but I have no money.
Yeah, she understood
and she said,
that I had
got the money. You pay me back when you get a job.
No, the arrangement was she was going to cover all the expenses.
Why?
Why? Because they needed a third person to go. Danny and her weren't just going to go by themselves.
Why?
Because they needed motivation. And I was that motivation.
Sandra,
yes,
you schlepped around with him for 2 years.
Yes,
you let him take advantage of you for 2 years. So then what you do is you say, thank God I figured out that this was not Mr. Right. Before I planned a wedding with him, I had a child with him. You can sit down now, roommate. I don't think you had a valid contract with him. I think you had the hopes and the dreams of a young lady who was in love. And I'm sure that there was a time when he felt mutually. But you're a giver, and he's a taker. Somehow in his own mind, he is entitled to take. Where are your parents?
In Santa Monica.
Did they indulge you?
Not really.
It sounds to me as if you've been indulged. Switzerland, Barcelona, working, not working, looking for just the right gig. The girlfriend takes care of you. There's a sense, Syria, of entitlement. Shh, do not answer. Now it's my turn. Sandra may find you irresistible, I guarantee you, sir. I do not. So, Sandra, I wish in my heart I could say to you, you had a valid contract, which is the only thing that I'm here to address. You did not have a contract recognized in the law for him to pay you back. But I'm telling you, I think that you're lucky. Because you're a lovely-looking, intelligent, hard-working young lady who should not hitch her star to somebody who has a sense of entitlement and who will just use you in one way or another for your whole life. Got it?
Yes, Your Honor.
Goodbye. Good luck.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Grow up.
She made her decision. That's fine. I hope Sandy has a great life, and I wish her well.
We were in a relationship, and when you're in a relationship, you do things together. You cook dinner and you clean.
They're about sharing and trust.
You help the other person out when they need help, and that's all part of a relationship.
And we loved each other.
I've learned to not just give out my money to people because I think I'm in love.
She gave up believing in me.
Obviously, it didn't work out for me this time, so I'll just keep my money in my pockets.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Grimm versus Bynum. Step forward, please.
Student Ingrid Grimm is suing the great-grandmother of her daughter's friend, Amy Bynum, for damage to their pocket bike. Ingrid says Amy's great-granddaughter, 9-year-old Michaela, wrecked it during a birthday party.
Miss Grimm, your daughter was having a birthday party. What birthday was she celebrating?
Actually, it was two of my daughters, my 11-year-old and my 13-year-old.
How many children did you have at the party?
There was approximately 20 to 25 children.
And Miss Bynum's granddaughter was one of those children, and you are her guardian, is that right?
Yes.
It is your claim that Miss Bynum's granddaughter rode a pocket bike. And it's a motorized bike, is that right?
Yes, gas.
And she damaged the bike. You want her grandmother to pay for it.
Yes.
Tell me how that happened.
Well, it was understood that the party...
Don't tell me what was understood. Just tell me what happened.
During the course of the party, we had allowed the children to ride. We have approximately 8 different bikes. And they were given certain rules that they had to follow in order to be able to ride the bikes. And Michaela did not follow those rules and therefore damaged the bike.
What rule didn't she follow?
Well, they were only supposed to go a certain distance, still within visual range of our house, which is approximately 8 to 9 houses, which is 1 block's length, turn around and come back. And then she was supposed to take turns. And who was watching
them at that time?
I was outside in the garage, and then my boyfriend, Rodney.
Well, who was watching Michaela? That's Michaela over there?
Yes.
Who was watching Michaela?
Everybody was, because the children...
No, not everybody. Were you watching her?
No, not at the time.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Miss Grimm, I'm going to ask you a couple of more questions.
Okay.
Then I'm going to end this torture.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Ingrid Grimm says 9-year-old Michaela Nash wrecked her twin daughter's pocket bike while riding it at their birthday party. Michaela's great-grandmother, Amy Bynum, says Ingrid allowed Michaela to ride the bike without her consent.
Michaela, I want you to stand up next to your grandma, okay? How did you know that Michaela had damaged the bike? Did somebody come and say Michaela fell off the bike?
Yes. It was about 5 children that had come and told us that.
Who did they come and tell?
They told both me and Rodney.
So that what you're telling me, Miss Grimm, is that neither you nor Rodney were watching Michaela. Is that correct?
Yes, we were.
You weren't. Because you just said to me, 5 children came and told me that Michaela had had an accident on the bike. And I said, who did they come and tell? And you said they came and told me and my boyfriend, which suggests to me that neither you nor your boyfriend was supervising the child when she was on the bike. Right?
Okay, you can say that, yes.
You see, you don't have to say anything yet. You're going to tell me what happened to the bike, Michaela, very fast. Tell me what happened to the bike.
I ran into the curb and then the tire wouldn't move.
Were you driving someplace where you weren't supposed to be driving?
No.
You were driving up the block?
Mm-hmm.
Had other children driven to the same location?
They drove a little farther.
Really? And who was watching you when you were driving?
Rodney.
Rodney. Where was he?
He was at the house.
Was he there when the other children were riding further than you rode?
Yes.
Were you hurt?
No.
Miss Grimm, I'm going to ask you a couple of more questions.
Okay.
Then I'm going to end this torture. Let us say, Michaela, who was driving a motorized bike in the street. The law permits you to do that?
Yes.
How fast do they go?
Anywhere from 15 to 20 miles, I think.
15 to 20 miles an hour?
Yes.
How old are you, Michaela?
9.
Miss Grimm, let us assume that, heaven forbid, Michaela had an accident on this bike and was injured. Do you think you would be liable for her injuries?
Yes.
Why?
Well, because she was at my party that I was supervising.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
So why in the world would you think that her grandmother is responsible for the damage to the bike?
Because she did not follow the rules, and she went further than where she was supposed to.
That was your responsibility to make sure that she didn't, not her grandmother's. When you invite children to your home to a birthday party, you become an insurer of their well-being. It is your responsibility to supervise them all the time that they're there. And if you elect to allow them to ride on a vehicle that can go 15 to 20 miles an hour, if there's an accident, you are 100% responsible. Did you tell her grandmother you were going to be allowing her to drive that bike?
All the parents were aware.
Were you made aware of that fact?
No, I was not.
I asked you whether you made Miss Bynum aware that you were going to allow her granddaughter to ride this bike.
All the parents were aware.
No, you can't answer the question, Miss Grimm, by saying to me all the parents were aware. You can't tell me what they were aware of when I ask you a simple question, which is, did you tell Miss Bynum that her granddaughter was going to be using a motorized vehicle?
I told all the parents of
When
the children.
did you tell Miss Bynum?
Well, when she dropped the children off.
What did you tell Miss Bynum?
I let them know that...
No. What did you tell Miss Bynum? What did you tell Miss Bynum when she dropped off Michaela?
Well, we introduced ourselves, and I thanked her for allowing her granddaughter to come to the birthday party. I let them know that what was...
Not you let them know. I want you to tell me what you said to Miss Bynum.
I don't recall.
Miss Bynum, is anything said to you about your granddaughter riding a motorized bike?
No. I would not have left her at the party if it was.
But anyway, Miss Grimm, you are an insurer of the minor children left in your care and custody when you invite children to a birthday party. If they damage something in your home, it's your fault. If they hurt themselves when they damage something in your home, it's your fault. So you can't invite more children to a party than you're prepared to supervise properly, and I certainly would exercise better judgment than allowing a 9-year-old child to get on a motorized bike that's capable of going 20 miles an hour. Case is dismissed. That's all.
Parties are excused.
नहीं मानते इसके पीछे वर्दी है ये जो काले बुटू वाले हैं ये क्या हुआ है हमारी आईजी तुम्हारा ना मंजूर ना मंजूर ये एफसीडीसी ना मंजूर तुम्हारा ना मंजूर ना मंजूर ये एफसीडीसी ना भाई ना ये ट्रोले शोले ना भाई ना रात नु छापे ना भाई ना ये रात नु छापे ना भाई ना ना भाई ना बड़े रोले बना डेढ़ के
फिर गया
वहाँ से शहर पिक्चर लेगा ये पूरा घुमाने लग गया 360 के एंगल में